I'm still waiting on confirmation, Madam Chair.
Okay.
Okay, we are live.
Okay.
We are on the record.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I'm just going to ask everyone, if you're not speaking, to please turn off your microphones. We have a lot of people here this evening. I just don't want any background noise, so we can all get the drift of what's going on here this evening and hear it well. All right, I will ask everyone at this time to please rise for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands,
one
nation, under God,
indivisible,
liberty,
liberties,
and
justice for all. Amen.
Thank you. Please be seated. Good evening, everyone.
Madam Chair, I'm sorry, hold on 1 second. There must have been a delay in the live. Just want to make sure that we are truly live. Hold on, please.
Are we?
No, I'm still waiting for Ryan to respond. He sent me a message. I didn't see it going live now. Give me 2 minutes.
All right. I'm not going to repeat the flag salute. I believe that we don't have to.
That's fine. Okay, we are live.
Okay, good evening, everybody. All right, Commissioners, Planning Board staff, ladies and gentlemen, as Chairwoman of the City of Paterson's Planning Board, I call this meeting of September 21st, 2022 to order. I hereby state that all the provisions of the State of New Jersey Public Meeting Law have been fully and completely met, that the notice of provisions required have been properly posted in the Planning Board office and with the City of Paterson clerk, that the public notice and advertisements have been published in the Herald News on September 9th, 2022, in accordance with the law, and that the copies of such notice and public advertisements are on file in the Planning Board office, as is also the agenda listing the applications to be taken up by the Planning Board at this meeting. Tonight's procedures will be in accordance with the rules, regulations, and bylaws as heretofore determined by the Planning Board at its office at 125 Ellison Street in the City of Paterson. Madam Secretary, may we have the roll call, please?
Commissioner Figueroa.
Present.
Commissioner Liranzo. Commissioner Liranzo.
Present.
Commissioner Roman.
Present.
Commissioner Amar.
Present.
Madam Vice Chair Santana. And Madam Chair Northrop.
Present.
Thank you.
Okay. Notice pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Act addressing effective coronavirus measures on the next public meeting, which would be this evening, consistent with the coronavirus-related restrictions of Executive Order Number 107, given on Saturday, March 21st, 2020, by Governor Philip D. Murphy, the Planning Board of the City of Paterson will not conduct in-person participation of the public at all future meetings until further notice. However, public participation will be available by means of communication equipment pursuant to NJSA 10:4-8, commencing on April 15, 2020. Though there may potentially be a practical need for a limited number of administrative, technical, or other city personnel to be present in or near the council chambers, 3rd floor, City Hall, 155 Market Street, Paterson, New Jersey, in-person participation of the public is prohibited. Nevertheless, for reasons of compliance with the said Executive Order Number 107, public participation will be available by calling 973-321-1579, and the meeting ID is 711-680-001. On the date and time, which is this evening, that this meeting is scheduled to commence. The public may also participate in the meeting by accessing the website of the City of Paterson, www.patersonnj.gov, and following the email link for the meeting, www.patersonnj.gov. This evening is a special meeting. It's Garrett Mountain Homes LLC, 36-60 Mountain Avenue, Block 5103, Lot 11.01. And on the combined parcels containing 44,037 square feet, the applicant proposes to construct 16 townhouse units in a cluster of 4 buildings containing 4 townhouse units of 3 bedrooms each in each of the 4 proposed buildings. Each building is to contain three stories and have dimensions of 37 feet in width and 100 feet in length. 48 parking spaces are proposed. First floor of each unit proposes a 1-car garage, a study, and powder room. The second floor proposes a kitchen, a dining area, a living room, and a powder room. The third floor proposes 3 bedrooms and 2 full baths, and 2 additional exterior parking spaces are provided for each unit. Each unit contains 2,821 gross square feet. All proposed vehicular access will be from 2 proposed driveways on Mountain Avenue. The existing structures on the site will be removed. This proposal is located within the R-3 high medium density residential district. All open space and landscaping requirements are met. 38 parking spaces are required and 48 parking spaces are provided. Variances are requested for front yard setback, as a minimum setback of 20 feet is required and 15 feet is proposed. Minimum rear yard setback as 25 feet is required and 8.9 feet is proposed. Maximum building height as one of the 4 proposed buildings exceeds the 35-foot height limit and proposes a 38.5-foot building height, and any other variances that the planning board requires. Okay, so it requires that the site plan approval right now in bulk variances. Who is representing this applicant this evening?
I am, Madam Chair, Nestor Guzman Jr.
Okay, there you are, I see you. Okay, good evening. Would you like to begin?
Sure. I would like to call my
Madam Chair,
Yes.
before we begin, I know we have other attorneys. If we can have their appearances entered and the respective parties that they represent.
Sure.
Beginning, I see Mr. Buglione. There you are, okay. If you could enter your appearance and who you're actually representing.
Good evening, sir. Good evening, Your Honors and Madam Chairwoman. My name is Albert Buglione. I represent the Borough of Woodland Park, which is a continuous municipality. Mountain Avenue runs through Woodland Park into the city of Paterson.
And your firm name and address, please.
Yes, tonight I'm at the Borough of Woodland Park. My firm is Buglione, Hutton and Dio. We are located at 401 Unit 206, Wayne, New Jersey.
Okay, and I saw Mr. Dockery, is that correct?
Yes.
And who do you represent?
My name is David Dockery. Last name is spelled Dockery. I'm from the law firm of Becker and Polyakov, 67 East Park Place, Suite 800, Morristown, New Jersey, 07960. And I am legal counsel to the Garrett Heights Condominium Association. And for the sake of clarity, I do not represent any of the unit owners. I am representing the association through direction of its board of trustees this evening.
Okay.
Are there any other attorneys that have logged in for this meeting tonight? Hearing none, Madam Chair, my suggestion in terms of protocol and procedure tonight is that Mr. Guzman make his opening statement. He would then elicit testimony from his experts one at a time, who will have cross-examination and redirect and essentially conduct the hearing more in accordance with the trial. So each attorney has a chance to question. Obviously, we would open up to the public at large, just like we do in any other meeting, and save all public comments for or against the application, which, Madam Chair, you do almost every meeting, for the end of the meeting. So with that being said, Madam Chair, we can have Mr. Guzman enter his opening statement and begin his application.
Yes, Mr. Guzman, please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The application, as you had stated, is for 16 townhomes on Mountain Avenue. This is consistent with the R3. It's in the R3 district, and it's consistent with the Paterson master plan in terms of the types of buildings and structures they would want there. Specifically, it's spelled out that townhomes would be particularly suitable for this particular zone. Previously, I had made inquiry to both the association and Woodland Park via certified mail as to any of their objections. Nothing was returned, nothing was received, and that was done over several months ago. So it's a little.
I have an objection to that, Madam Chairwoman. The statement was, do you have any comments? And our position was, and I thought I made that clear orally, these plans were drawn before the applicant purchased the property. So our longstanding position always remained that we thought the density was too high, and we thought the maximum should have been 8 units. So we did not put anything in writing, but these plans were driven and written before the applicant purchased the property.
That's actually incorrect. These plans were not written before the applicant purchased the property.
We'll go
I'm not
through
sure
the
if it's at any moment either, but that was not the case. And so.
Your objections, though, Mr. Guzman?
Yes, and what the objection is that the plans were drawn before we had an opportunity to object. In other instances with other developers, they'll say, we're intending to develop a property, may we have a meet and greet? The plans were drawn as submitted and the application was pending, and then we were asked, what's your position? So the borough's position was that we had to present our objection to this honorable board.
Understood, Mr. Berglund. Your objection obviously is noted. We're going to proceed with the application tonight on its merits, and obviously you've reserved your objection for the record for any ongoing proceeding.
Thank you, Your Honor.
You're welcome. I'm not your honor, but.
No, well, you're acting.
You can call me that if you want to. That's okay. Understood, Mr. Berglund.
For the record as well, I don't want to belabor it. I would just also like to reserve my objection later on behalf of my client as well, for the record.
Understood, Mr. Berglund.
Noted. Okay. Okay, please, Mr. Guzman, please proceed.
Thank you. And so, as a preliminary observation, I don't believe any of the objectors have brought expert witnesses. So I believe I can make that clear that none are going to testify before the board. And
Not this evening. It was our understanding that plaintiff had a full presentation tonight with up to 3 or 4 experts. And we have a planning board meeting here at town and a health board meeting. So our officials are engaged in those other matters, but we didn't want to belabor the point and at least get this proceeding started with testimony.
Understood, Mr. Berglund.
Yeah.
And honestly, you will have the opportunity to present whatever experts you want,
Thank you.
because I doubt sincerely that this application is going to be completed tonight. So you will certainly have your opportunity.
All right, yeah, so without interruption, please go ahead, Mr. Guzman.
thank you, Madam Chair. So, Madam Chair, I don't have anything further, and if Mr. Deutsch, if it's okay if you can read his summary.
Yes. Yes, please, Mr. Deutsch, please read your summary.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Property taxes and sewer charges are paid to date. Persons having a 10% or greater ownership interest in Garrett Mountain Homes, LLC are Eilina Chacon, 50%, Nestor F. Guzman Jr., 25%, and Kevin Curtin, 25%, all providing an address of 250 Madison Avenue, Paterson, New Jersey. Thomas F. Miller, licensed surveyor, has prepared a survey dated February 12, 2021. The parcel is frontage of 336 feet on Mountain Avenue, a northern lot line that measures 125 feet, and a southern lot line that measures 255.37 feet along the shared boundary of Woodland Park. Lot 11.01 has lot area of 44,037 square feet for 1.011 acres. The site rises in elevation from 359 at the south to 379 at the north. The survey also indicates that an existing 2-story frame dwelling and separate garage building exists on the site and shall be removed. a street photo exhibit identified as Drawing 1 of 1 dated March 19, 2021, and prepared by Stonefield Engineering Design has been submitted, which indicates an aerial photo of the site and 4 additional black and white images of the site buildings and grounds. Stonefield Engineering Design has prepared a 13-page site plan dated April 9, 2021. Drawing C1 is the cover sheet and indicates the zoning table, the aerial map, the tax map, and zoning map and sheet index. Drawing C2 is the existing conditions plan and also indicates the City of Paterson 200-foot property owners list. In addition to the list of addresses for local and county agencies to be contacted and adjacent property owners in Paterson, property owners in adjacent Woodland Park are to be contacted by certified mail prior to the public hearing. Drawing C3 is the demolition plan and indicates all buildings on the site are to be removed. Existing utilities are to be disconnected. Existing boulders along the property lines are to be removed. Existing fences that are to remain will be protected throughout construction. The existing rock wall is to remain and to be protected throughout construction. The existing chain link fence on the property is to be removed. Existing grass areas are to be removed and regraded. Existing trees are to be removed. The existing curb and sidewalk are to be removed and replaced with new construction. Drawing C4 is the site plan. 4 townhouse buildings of 3 stories each are proposed with 4 3-bedroom units in each building for a total of 16 units. Each unit has a footprint of 925 square feet, a total unit size of 2,775 square feet, and 3 parking spaces per unit, 1 within the garage and 2 within the driveway, which measures 18 feet by 18 feet. The driveway aisle between the buildings measures 24 feet in width. The 2 access curb cuts on Mountain Avenue leading from the internal driveways are each 24 feet wide. Each access driveway and curb cut will serve 2 of the proposed buildings. Each unit has a 2-car driveway with a garage for 1 vehicle. A retaining wall is located on the western side of the building along the townhouse units and between buildings 2 and 3. Also indicated on the plan are the zoning requirements, the off-street parking requirements, general requirements, fence requirements, and notes. Each of the 4 units in each of the 4 buildings will be designed with a 2-foot alternating offset, both visible on the front and rear facades of the building to enhance the individual townhouse unit's facade. Drawing C5 is the grading and drainage plan. The city engineer will review and have the authority to accept same or require revisions to the on-site stormwater management facilities. Drawing C6 is the utility plan. Underground on-site utilities are indicated for electrical, gas, water, telephone, data services, and sanitary sewer pipe. Connections will continue to Mountain Avenue, which will require additional permits. Drawing C7 is the lighting plan. Drawing C8 is the soil erosion and sediment control plan. Drawing C9 is the landscaping plan. The plan indicates 5 types of deciduous trees are to be planted on the site. A total of 36 trees are to be planted as indicated. Drawing C10 is the landscape details. Drawing C11 and C12 are the construction details. Drawing C13 are the lighting details. Evans Architects has prepared a 2-page architectural plan dated April 16, 2021. Sheet SK1 are the floor plans, a typical front elevation of each individual townhouse unit, and the rear elevation drawings of buildings 1, 2, and 3. The ground floor plan indicates steps onto a covered porch and front door, which leads into the entrance foyer. To the left are stairs to the upper floors. Beyond the staircase are doors leading to either a closet to the left or a door into the 285 square foot 1-car garage. The back half of the ground floor indicates a closet, a powder room, a mechanical room, and a 250 square foot study. Sliding doors from the study lead onto an at-grade patio for buildings 1, 2, and 3. There's no patio for building 4, located at the southern end of the site. On building 4, both the first and second floors will have a deck. There will be steps from the first floor deck to the ground on building 4. The second floor indicates a living room, a closet, a powder room, a pantry, a kitchen, and a dining area. Sliding doors lead to an elevated deck. The third floor plan indicates a master.
I'm sorry, excuse me. If anyone has their microphone on, I'm going to ask at this time to please turn your phones off or your microphones off, as to not, I don't want to hear this background noise. It's hard enough, and then we have a court stenographer here that has to also take notes, okay? All right, thank you.
The third floor plan indicates a master bedroom with a full bath, 2 walk-in closets, sliding doors to the faux front balcony, 2 additional bedrooms with closets, an additional full bathroom, an enclosed laundry, and 2 additional closets. The first floor has dimensions of 25 feet in width by 37 feet in length. The second and third floors have dimensions of 25 feet in width by 39 feet in length. A typical front elevation for each unit indicates 4 steps to the covered column porch and front door, with the garage door to the right and surrounded by a block facade. The second floor indicates a double casement window above the front door and a triple casement window above the garage. A decorative roof canopy extends over the first floor. The third floor indicates a single casement window and the master bedroom sliding doors that, along with the second floor and decorative A-frame roof, extend 2 feet beyond the face of the townhouse unit. The rear elevation drawing of buildings 1, 2, and 3 to the north of the site and at ground level indicate the rear sliding doors at patio level, 1 single casement window to the right of each sliding door, the second floor sliding doors with double casement windows to the right of each unit, and a third floor with 2 double casement windows for each unit. The minimum width of the sidewalk to be placed on Mountain Avenue shall be 5 feet. Each unit's refuse container shall be placed for pickup on Mountain Avenue. The R3 high-medium density residential district is designed to permit a more intensive residential use of land than permitted in the R1 and R2 districts, with various types of dwellings being permitted, including townhouses, garden apartment developments, and low-rise residential buildings. Each of the proposed 16 3-bedroom units require 2.4 parking spaces for a total of 38.4 parking spaces. The applicant is providing a total of 48 off-street parking spaces, 1 parking space in the garage and 2 parking spaces in the driveway for each of the 16 townhouse units. The following variances are requested. Front yard setback is a minimum setback of 20 feet is required and 15 feet is proposed. A variance for minimum rear yard setback as 25 feet is required and 8.9 feet is proposed. A variance for exceeding the maximum building height as one of the 4 proposed buildings exceeds the 35-foot height limit and proposes a 38.5-foot building. The planning board may grant this variance as it does not exceed 10% of the proposed building height. The distance between the 2 access driveways is 135 feet. The distance from the northern driveway to the northern property line is 75 feet. The distance from the southern driveway to the southern property line is 70 feet. John Korak, professional engineer of Stonefield Engineering, has submitted a 3-page traffic and parking assessment report dated March 31st, 2021. Mr. Korak concludes that the proposed development would not have a significant impact on the traffic operations of the adjacent roadway network. The site driveways and on-site parking have been designed to provide for effective access to and from the subject property. In an email dated June 30th, 2022 from Mr. Hung Chao Yu, the City of Paterson traffic engineer responds that he agrees with the conclusions of the report and has no further comments. It shall be the responsibility of the applicant and/or preparer of the plan to obtain a letter from the city engineer indicating the plans have been satisfactorily reviewed prior to the plans being released to the construction official. Surrounding land uses. This proposal is in the Stony Road section. The Garrett Heights condominiums constructed during the 1980s are located to the north and west of this proposal. There's also a 10-unit and an 8-unit condominium buildings located directly north of this proposal that were constructed in the mid-2000s. In conclusion, the applicant estimates the cost of this proposal are approximately $5 million. That is your staff review for this application, Madam Chairwoman.
Thank you, Mr. Deutsch. Mr. Guzman?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to call as my first witness, Joshua Klein.
Please swear, oh, Mr.
Right here. Klein, please raise your right hand. Oh, sorry, I'm looking at the wrong person. You swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under penalty of perjury?
I do.
Please state and spell your name for the record.
Josh Klein, Kline. I'm with Stonefield Engineering and Design. Our address is 92 Park Avenue, Rutherford, New Jersey, 07070.
Your credentials, please.
Yes, I'm a professionally licensed engineer in the state of New Jersey. My license is in good standing. I attended the University of Vermont, where I received a Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering. I have over 8 years of experience in land development, specifically site engineering. Worked on over 250 commercial, residential, and industrial projects throughout the Northeast. I have been qualified and have presented as a civil engineer in front of both this board as well as the Paterson Zoning Board.
We accept him as an expert witness. Does either of the attorneys object to that?
No objection. I just would like him to state on the record the year that he received his license in the state of New Jersey.
You will have to give me a second, as it's been a little bit of time.
In the meantime, I have no objection.
Okay, thank you.
I usually get the number, which I have readily available, not the year.
If you can't find the year, give us the number.
That's no problem. I'm right there while it loads. So the number is 24GE0543470. My license was first active in New Jersey in 2018.
Sir.
Okay. Mr. Guzman, please proceed.
Thank you. So, Mr. Klein, are you familiar with the plans for 36-60 Mountain Avenue in Paterson, New Jersey?
Yes, I am.
Can you please describe for the board the plans that were drawn?
Perfect. Let me share my screen and I will go through. All right, perfect. So everyone should be able to see my screen.
We can, it's just a little tad small. If you could just increase it a little bit, that would be great. If you can't, we'll just deal with it.
No, it's no problem. I will zoom in. This is the cover sheet, sheet C1 of the plan submitted. It is dated 5/4/2021. I just want to confirm, I'm not planning on marking this in as it was submitted. Is that okay?
That's fine, that's acceptable.
Okay, perfect. So what I'll do is I'll zoom in now. So I think I always like to kind of start with a little bit of a kind of an overview. So, you know, myself as a site civil engineer, you know, the items we really look at, which tonight I will go through for the board and both the public that are here tonight, you know, we don't anticipate any adverse impact to the surrounding neighborhood, the adjacent properties, or the community. I think one of the other things that's important to note in the beginning is, you know, our office and myself are very familiar with the city, and we do understand and agree as a condition of approval that we would work with the city engineer regarding all of the engineering elements of the design, and we would secure the city engineer's approval and all applicable permits associated with the project. So what I have up on the screen tonight, I have this is our cover sheet. So aerial map on the left, tax and zoning map on the right. I think we were kind of brought through a lot of the existing conditions. So I'm just going to highlight some of the key things that we look at as a site civil engineer. So I will just kind of zoom into the aerial map a little bit more. So I think as you can see, here are some of the items that were kind of previously described. So kind of to the left of the page, or west, as you'll hear me speak to tonight, you can see that kind of larger condo association. As you look to the north, you can kind of see another townhouse development to the top of the page. To the right, we have undeveloped area. And then to the south, we have the borough of Woodland Park. And you can kind of see we have some single family homes kind of scattered, at least in the area that's shown on the screen. Our site is fronted along Mountain Avenue, which we will kind of describe the access a little bit further, but it is a two-way street. One of the keys is, the majority of our site does not have improvements along the frontage. There's no ADA compliant sidewalk. There's no kind of curbing or designated kind of frontage improvements. There's some old boulders and some kind of broken up area. The site is mostly undeveloped. You can kind of see to the north half is vacant or open space, and then there was a kind of an existing development that was described to the south. I think some of the key features that kind of take away as we go into the proposed condition is first is the topography. So this changes about 15 feet from north to south along Mountain Avenue. So as you work your way to the top of the corner of the page and kind of work your way to the bottom, there's a 15-foot drop in elevation. There also is a big elevation difference as you work your way west to east. So the development behind us today, depending, at the north is about 5 feet higher than us, and to the south it ranges to about 20 feet higher than us. So there are definitely some challenges. It's a unique site. I think when you start looking at the geometry, like, yes, it is a rectangular lot, but it's really shallow in depth, and it has a lot of grade change that comes across it. So that's where when we start getting into the engineering and the design, it becomes difficult in laying things out. I think another note is there are no stormwater management facilities on site. The key there is, water kind of hits the ground today and goes uncontrolled off of the site. And I already kind of noted the frontage for everyone. So what I'll do now is kind of move to this is an exhibit. I will mark it as A1. It's a site plan rendering exhibit. It's dated 9/15/2022 for the record. It was prepared by our office. This is a colorized site plan. It takes the site plan as submitted, the landscape plan as submitted, combines them together and colors them. Perfect. So I will zoom in, and just to kind of orient everyone, top of the page is to the north, bottom of the page is to the south. Again, you can see Mountain Avenue on the right-hand side or to the east. Just kind of highlight the big features. We have the 4 buildings as you work your way north to south, building number 1 at the top, building number 4 at the bottom. There's 2 access points along Mountain View. These are in accordance with the city standards, as well as kind of general RSIS standards in terms of access aisle with parking space depth and sizes. You can kind of see, I'll zoom in to just the building 1. Again, you have it's 4 units as you work your way from right to left or from east to west. You have a kind of 2 spaces in front of each units. You have stairs to get up into the entrance as shown, and then there is a single garage. There will be our architect, Mr. Evans, will be speaking later. He'll describe the buildings in a little bit more detail, and there also will be a traffic engineer, John Korak, from our office, who will be kind of speaking more to the parking, the access, and kind of the general traffic operations of the site. Kind of what we start to look at, and I'll zoom in, is some of the site features. So you can see the improvements along the entire frontage. So we'll be putting in new curbing, new ADA compliant sidewalk, new curb cuts for the driveways along the rear of the site, or to the kind of the left-hand side or the west of the page. And it's a kind of a line with a square across it. So the applicant is proposing a board-on-board fence along the high side. I think this is important because this will provide some additional screening element to the residents to the left-hand side or to the west of the page. So the fence is on the highest point of our site. You can see as I zoom in between building number 1 and building number 2, there's a retaining wall, but we made sure that the board-on-board fence kind of remains on the high point of the site. And there are existing, the development to the left-hand side or to the west has a kind of a rock wall in order to climb elevation, as well as some additional kind of features to kind of alleviate the grade change. It's like a boulder wall. So the applicant won't be impacting or touching kind of any of those existing elements that are on the neighbor's property. And in one case, kind of slightly encroach into our property. So we're going to kind of leave those elements, as they are in order to kind of maintain the grade change between the 2 property. And then the applicant is proposing retaining walls, and the sides of the buildings will act in themselves as a retaining wall to make up the grade change. Additionally, as you work your way north to south, to accommodate the grade change, there will be a slight step in the elevations of the townhouses. There also is a a small wall between the two townhouses, building number 2 and number 3, to make up the grade change, to kind of step the development to work as we work kind of with the grades from north to south. As you can kind of see to the north, we have new evergreen screenings that are being planted. So there's a 0-foot side yard setback requirement. The applicant it's 12 feet from the kind of the elevated or the column of the elevated patios, but it's about 15 feet from the building. So there's kind of a nice little grass area between the back of building 1 and the property line. And then again, there's no side yard setback along to the bottom of the page or to the south, but the kind of patio and stairs are 13 feet away, and the building at the closest point is 16. So that kind of creates some open space kind of between this development in the rear property lines. We are, and our planner will go in depth with the variances we're seeking tonight. I am familiar and have kind of looked into the setback variances associated with the application. What we look as a site civil engineers when we start talking about setback variances is what are the elements that we design as a site civil engineer, that would be impacted. So, one of the things we look at is stormwater. We look at utilities. We look at kind of constructability, and kind of based on our review of all of these items, they can all be safely accommodated. So this relief can be granted by the board, and this project from a site civil engineering perspective can safely accommodate that. We have stormwater features that are beyond the requirements of the NJDEP as well as the city. We have adequate spacing to provide utilities. Again, we're not building, we're permitted to go right to the side yards, but we're not doing so. So again, our planner will speak more to that. I just wanted to kind of touch on, what we look at as a site civil engineer. And then one of the items we did note is a little bit conservative. So there's a 25-foot space requirement between the townhouses, rear to rear. So we noted 21 feet because at the pinch point of where one of the raised patios is to the back of the building is 21 feet, but building to building is 25 feet. So the, kind of the intent of that spacing is met, from back of building to back of building. I highlighted, I'll just highlight kind of the stormwater. I'm happy to go into more depth. This is a major development. So we are subject to the NJDEP regulations that were in place at the time. So what this project looked to do is it incorporated pervious pavement within the driveways. So water will kind of be pitched in, the roof leaders would be connected, and water would be contained within these pervious pavement stormwater systems. And then through an outlet control structure, it would be slowly released. Water would, during the larger storm events, bubble out of the grate and kind of make its way to Mountain Avenue, which again is water kind of uncontrolled today, comes off the site. In terms of lighting, we are proposing new lighting as part of the project. We are complying with the lighting requirements. I think the key here is we want to provide safe lighting for our future residents, but we want to minimize any potential impact to the surrounding areas. We're very aware that there's residents kind of surrounding the site, single family homes as well as townhomes, condo association. So what we look to do is keep the fixtures very low. So we don't have any area lights associated with this project. The mounting height of the canopy lights is 9 feet. The wall sconces are 6 feet. For reference, it's very low. That kind of keeps it at a pedestrian level. This is all LED. It's all downward facing. It's all dark sky compliant, kind of full cutoff LED fixtures. And then the biggest kind of key there to end with is there's absolutely no spillage on any adjacent property with the proposed lighting. So again, our focus is we want safe lighting for our future residents, kind of in the areas that they park, accessing Mountain Avenue, which is provided. And again, we do meet the lighting requirements as noted. It was already touched on, but from a landscape perspective, you can see the new street trees along Mountain Avenue, which will really kind of soften that landscape as you work your way up and down Mountain Avenue. And we have the new evergreen screening to the north, and then some additional kind of ornamental trees on the southern side of the property. And again, the intent is to save 3 existing trees to the south, kind of closest to the southern border. If those trees could not be saved as part of the project, they would be replanted. But our initial intention is to kind of save those existing trees. They're kind of tucked close enough to the property line that we're kind of showing them to be protected initially. Again, we'll, from a utility standpoint, we will work with the city engineer and kind of all the different utility agencies. The intention, we would have to extend, the sewer is located to the north of the property. So we plan to extend the main down Mountain Avenue to make a connection. There'll be a kind of a small grinder pump to bring the sewer up to that elevation from building 4 and building 3. And then we will make the connection into Mountain Avenue. And then again, the intention is to bring the utilities in underground through Mountain Avenue for water and gas. And then initially we're showing a ground mounted transformer to be conservative. There are poles across Mountain Avenue. Depending on kind of working with the utility authority, they may have us go overhead across our site to a pole and then underground to the building. They may have us just go to the transformer. So, again, we would kind of work with them to ensure that there's, the adequate electric service being provided to the development. Overall, that kind of highlights, I think, a lot of the big items. I think, again, in closing, the big thing here is, from a site civil engineering perspective, we've done a thorough job reviewing the plan and kind of ensuring that this project can be safely accommodated on site. And the elements that we design, have been done so in a way to, avoid any adverse impact to the surrounding neighbors, to Mountain View Avenue and the community as a whole.
Does that conclude your testimony?
Yes, it does.
Okay, Mr. Guzman, do you have any questions of Mr. Klein?
Just some brief follow-up, Madam Chair. Mr. Klein, there is a variance, height variance for one of the buildings. Is that correct?
Correct, there is.
And what is the reasoning for that variance?
So there's a very small de minimis height variance for building number 2. It's 6 inches. There's a height variance of 3.25 feet for building number 4. And that really comes from a grade calculation. So we have to calculate the mean grade around the building. So the front of the buildings are all consistent. But then again, as the site is dropping north to south, as you work your way to the back of the building, it is a little bit lower. So when you take that mean grade, there is a slight kind of height variance that we are seeking as part of the project.
And that's due to basically the grade, the topography of the lot.
Correct. That is correct.
Madam Chair, I have no further questions of Mr. Klein at this time.
Okay, Mr. Buglione, do you have any questions of Mr. Klein?
Yes, Madam Chairwoman, thank you very much. Good evening, Mr. Klein. You had testified that you have a familiarity with the city of Paterson. My focus for this question is, how many other projects have you represented landowners who were attempting to build adjacent to a park?
So I don't know how relevant this is to this application, but our office did work on, I'm just pulling the name of the project we did.
I wanted to focus on you first. How many projects did you personally work on for a Paterson landowner attempting to build next to a park?
Yeah, one sec. So we did
Are you
work.
looking at documents? If you're looking at documents or you're using your computer, you'll have to tell us.
No objection, Mr. Aquaviva. Mr. Klein isn't even allowed to get his sentence out, and it's happened twice already. So if there can be some courtesy to the witness, please.
I just need a second.
This is cross-examination, and I have a witness utilizing computer.
Excuse me. I want to say something, okay? Because the stenographer has to take the words as they come out verbatim. We cannot have people speaking over each other or interrupting each other. So I am going to ask for the courtesy, just let the gentleman answer the question and then you can respond, please. Thank you. Go ahead, please.
Perfect. Thank you. Sorry, I just need a second to kind of be able to collect the thoughts to answer the question. This year, I did recently work on a project in Totowa Avenue near Hinchcliffe Stadium that is near the Great Falls Park.
And that park is different than the county park known as Garrett Mountain.
Well, correct. They're two different parks in the city.
And are there any other parks that you've worked on with an adjacent project?
I answered the question.
Okay, no, I was just asking for a yes or no. If your answer is that, that's what your answer is.
Any other questions?
Yes, I have some other questions. Sir, focusing on Mountain Avenue, would you be able to tell us how many other homes exceed a height of 30 feet?
I would not.
In kind, can you tell us who in your office prepared this plan from Stonefield?
So the plans are signed and sealed by myself. If you look in the bottom right-hand corner, you'll see that. So they're prepared by myself with a team of engineers, and that I oversee them and I sign and seal them and submit them to the city.
How many other individuals are responsible on your team for working on a plan?
So our teams range. On this project, I worked alongside maybe a range of three to five engineers.
And would it be fair to state that they did a majority of the work and then you're the signatory for the submission on the application?
I don't think that's fair to say. I mean, again, I'm a partner with Stonefield Engineering. I signed and sealed these plans in accordance with any kind of state and local requirements.
Do you keep timesheets to tell us how much time you spent and how much time the other three individuals spent?
I'm going to.
I really don't think that's an appropriate question.
Yeah.
Your thoughts are of no moment. It's a question, it's presented to you, and did you keep a timesheet?
Mr.
for the
Berglione,
amount
you keep
of
breaking.
time that
Mr.
you?
Berglione, you keep breaking up. You keep breaking up. Could you state your
I'm
question
sorry.
again?
I will repeat my question. Mr. Klein, do you have timesheets that tell us the amount of time that you dedicated to this project as well as to the other members of your team?
My answer is I believe this is an inappropriate question for this board.
Okay, you may believe that, and you're entitled to your beliefs. However, no one has told you not to answer the question. So you have an obligation to answer the question. Please answer my question.
Again, our company has timesheets. I do believe this is an inappropriate question to be asked in front of this board.
So you cannot tell me the amount of time you worked on this project as opposed to your other team members.
If the gentleman cannot answer the question, I suggest we move on.
Madam Chairwoman, I understand, but
Madam
he's
Chair-
refusing
Madam
to
Chair,
answer. He says it's an inappropriate
Yeah, Madam
question.
Chair, if I may. Mr. Klein, if you can answer the question, please do so in a yes or no.
Right.
Well, if I can be heard, is everybody breaking up or is it just me?
We're breaking up. I'm sorry, sir. I know that you told me I'm breaking up and it's staggered, so I'm having some trouble.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Mr. Klein, Mr. Berglione in that context is correct. You don't have the authority to determine whether or not a question is appropriate or not. So the answer is yes or no, and if you can't answer that, simply say you don't have the ability to answer it.
I don't know. I can't answer. I don't have the info present.
Thank you. Mr. Berglione, you can proceed.
Thank you kindly, sir. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Mr. Klein, have you ever made a site visit to this actual property?
I personally have not been to this site, but our survey team, as well as multiple people from our office, have been.
As part of your testimony, Mr. Klein, you stated that you have recommended that a fence be placed at the rear of the property. My question to you, and you highlighted it on your plan, but I couldn't see it. Where will the fence be located? On the property line or at a distance in from the property line?
That's no problem. Let me share my screen. So just to clarify, I didn't recommend it. It is proposed on the plan. And so I'm gonna zoom in to help. So again, just pulling up Exhibit A1. So on the left-hand side or the west side, you can see the proposed 6-foot high fence. So there's a slight jog in the property line. So at the closest point, it's 6.4 feet. To the north of the page, it's 6.4. At one point, it's approximately, I would say, about 12 feet away. And then as you work your way to the bottom, again, it's about 6 feet away. So it's kind of inward onto our property.
Is it fair to state that there's a staggered line for the fence, and at one point it'll be 6 feet away from the property? I'm sorry, from the buildings, and at another point it'll be 12 feet based on that testimony?
No, so the
Okay.
fence runs in a straight north to south pattern. It's equidistant from the proposed buildings 1, 2, 3, and 4. And again, the 6 foot that is being mentioned is from the fence to the property line, not to any buildings on the adjacent property.
So there's extra space on the other side of the fence that goes to the property line?
Correct. There is a fence, and then from the fence to the west, there is approximately 6 feet to the property line, and in some areas greater than 6 feet.
Does the placement of the fence restrict any access for equipment to the rear of the buildings?
What type of equipment?
Say a crane to remove a tree or a bush or to place an air conditioner.
I don't believe it would impact the ability to do the items as you described.
How about if we take a different scenario, would the placement of the fence hamper a fire apparatus from going to the rear of the building?
No, it would not.
And what's the basis for your opinion on that?
Again, a fire truck would be able to safely turn into the site from Mountain Avenue, and they would be able to kind of pull into the driveway. Again, I'm not a firefighter. I'm just an engineer, so I can't speak to how they would stage or be able to kind of handle the situation.
Sorry, I have to interrupt the meeting. Mr. Aquaviva's internet froze and he cannot hear the proceedings. We're going to have to wait a minute.
Oh, goodness. No problem. Thank you very much.
Do you want to go off the record?
Yes, please.
We're off the record.
Okay, Mr. Aquaviva just texted me. He's trying to log back on. So just give it a minute.
Okay, Madam Chair, my apologies. I'm back. My internet went down unexpectedly.
1 second.
Okay.
Welcome
Mr.
to
Leon?
welcome to the practice of law in 2022. Sorry about that, everybody.
Back on the record.
We're
Welcome
back on the
back.
record, Mr. Baglione.
Thank you very kindly, Madam Chairwoman. Mr. Klein, a moment ago, you stated that you're not an expert in fire safety. Isn't that correct?
No, that is not what I stated.
Okay. And you stated that you believe that a fire apparatus has adequate access through the driveway and Mountain Avenue. Isn't that correct?
So I think the key here, for the
That was just a yes or a no on that.
so the
I'm going to object,
driveway.
Madam Chair. We're not in a criminal courtroom here, and we're asking for yes or no questions sometimes, and the witness is not allowed to answer.
I agree. I said it a million times. We can't talk over each other. So I'm going to say this probably for the last time because it's not normal here that this should be happening. We're talking over each other. One person at a time. And I agree, we're not in a criminal court. Let's just ask the question yes or no. You can answer it or you can't answer it. Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you kindly. The question was, you believe that a fire apparatus has adequate access from Mountain Avenue and the driveways of the home.
Yes.
Moving on, sir, can you tell us in your review and analysis of Mountain Avenue, how many multi-family residences have a 10-foot setback from Mountain Avenue?
I am going to object again, Madam Chair. I mean, this has nothing to do with the project at issue. He's here to testify as to the plan and the plans that were submitted, and they're asking for information that is for other parcels at this time.
Madam Chair, they are asking, I'm sorry.
Excuse me, I'm just going to ask Mr. Acquaviva for his opinion on that. I agree that it has nothing to do, but Mr. Acquaviva?
It may very well not, but quite frankly, if the witness can answer the question, simple yes or no, and move on, that would probably be more appropriate.
Again, as the site civil engineer, it's not something that we looked at.
So it's a no. Okay.
In the same vein, can you tell us how many multi-family residences on Mountain Avenue have a back property setback of 8.9 feet when the requirement is 25 feet?
Again, as the site civil engineer, it's not that. So the answer would be no.
I know you said that it's not normal, but you haven't conducted any research to determine whether or not there are other similar projects that have a limited setback, either at the rear or the front.
Again, as the site civil engineer, these aren't things that I look into. These might be better questions suited for a planner.
You reviewed the plans that have been drawn for this particular property?
I believe.
Mr. Leon, are you referring to the
Yes.
architectural plans?
Yes, the architectural plans. I'm sorry about that, Mr. Acquaviva and Madam Chair.
I have reviewed them. Yes.
Who drew the plans, to the best of your recollection?
I believe the architect's Matt Evans.
And when were they drawn or sealed, to the best of
That
your...
might be a good question for Matt Evans. I don't think it pertains to what I did or presented to this evening.
With regard to the work that you have done on this application, can you kindly tell us how much your firm charged?
Object, Madam Chair. This is totally irrelevant and not substantive and has nothing to do with the application.
That objection should be sustained. The witness does not have to announce how much he's paid for his services.
I agree.
How many drafts of your plan that you identified of C1 were made prior to finalizing and sealing the drawing?
I apologize to the board with these questions, but I don't have that answer, readily available.
So were there any drafts, or was there just one final?
Yes, there were drafts.
And who reviewed the drafts before they were finalized?
What is he getting?
I reviewed the plans before they were signed and sealed and submitted to the city.
Thank you. I have no further questions, absent any cross-examination from any other party to this action.
Mr. Dockery, do you have any questions of this applicant? Of this witness?
I do. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. Klein. I just have a couple of questions. May not be appropriate, but I'll ask it anyways. And if you don't know the answer, that's fine. Are you familiar with the development to the north, Garrett Mountain Estates?
Just based on our kind of the work that we've done and the research into this property.
Okay, and when you prepared the site plan for the subject development, could you tell me in your own opinion the difference in setback at the northernmost part of the subject development versus what the setback may be to the Garrett Mountain Estates setback? The rear setback in particular along Garrett Heights condominium.
Let me make sure. So do you want me to start with, you're referencing the property to the north that I'm
The 8 townhomes to the north, correct. I just would like you to compare, if you know, the difference in setback. It appears to me on the plans that the narrowest setback to the north of the subject development is 8.9 feet to the Garrett Heights property line. What is, if you can provide it, your opinion, what is the approximate setback from the rear of the townhomes to the north?
Got it. So to the north, I'm just going to zoom in. So that would be between kind of building number 1. So from the building to the property at the closest point is 15.8 feet, and at the furthest point is 22.3 feet. Just going to, usually I have a scale on me in person.
Well, that's not exactly what I was asking. I was asking about the rear line setback along the Garrett Heights property line.
Got it. I just want to make sure. I thought the first question was talking about the property to the north.
Well, right. So if you look, I'll just try to be as simple as I can. So if you look to the left of the subject property, the setback between the subject property and Garrett Heights property line is 8.9 feet, correct?
Oh, God, sorry. You're referencing the development to the west or to the left-hand side of the page?
Let's say to the left. That might be the easiest for our purposes.
To the west, correct?
Yes, yes.
Correct. Okay, perfect.
All right, so that's 8.9
Yes.
feet at its most narrowest point. So if you move north to the Garrett Estates development, would you be able to provide what the approximate setback is from Garrett Estates to the west?
Well, I'm really not following you.
If you take
Maybe in a different way.
Sorry, if you take the back of Garrett Estates, the development to the north, and you were to estimate the setback from that rear of the building to the Garrett Heights property line to the west, from there to approximately what is that?
Oh, got it. So you're not talking about our property, you're talking about the adjacent property.
Correct.
Got it. It's approximately, I would say 40 feet, 43 feet.
Okay, all right. That was already asked. Along the rear setback between the subject property and Garrett Heights condominium to the west, particularly along the most northern part and the narrowest part, in addition to a fence, is there any retaining wall planned for that property line?
There's no retaining wall proposed on the property line. So the project does propose retaining walls that are about, and again, it's measured at about 9 feet. They're shown kind of 8.9 feet from the property line.
And the current conditions of the property now, there's a drop-off, sort of a steep drop-off in topography from the west as you go onto the subject property. Where does that fall on the plans?
Correct. So to the north corner, there's about a 5-foot difference in elevation. And as you work your way to the south, it ranges from about 15 feet to 20 feet, depending on how you measure it.
And so is the purpose of those retaining walls, you said that the west end of the buildings is meant to serve as a retaining wall. Is that meant to abut that topography difference, or will there be infill along there to sort of transition?
So there will be a slope between the property line and our buildings, the westerly facade of our buildings.
So the fence will go on top of the retaining wall, so to speak.
Correct. It'll be on the higher side of the parking areas.
Okay. And is there any landscaping planned along that westernmost boundary?
So currently the plans do not propose kind of any new landscaping along that fence.
And is there any current screenage or landscape blocking presently on the site?
I don't believe there's any kind of landscaping screening of subsidence kind of on our property that's there today.
Okay. And again, I don't know if you can answer this, but if you can, great. Would you be able to testify as to any logistics as to construction staging for the development?
I would not.
Can you tell me whether it was not your decision to come up with the idea of placing the townhomes with its side facing Mountain Avenue, or was that the direction you were given?
That was the direction from the project team. I think the architect, from his perspective, might be able to provide some insight, if possible. So it may be a better question for him. From a site civil engineering perspective, I think one of the nice advantages of having the townhomes facing each other is it kind of shares the impervious cover in between and allows us to have this nice area to do a pervious pavement or a pervious paver system kind of in between. And I think one of the other nice kind of advantages of this, compared to the development to the north, is it doesn't create a bunch of really close curb cuts all along Mountain Avenue where you have a bunch of people kind of backing in and out onto the road. So by having the design of the homes facing into each other, it creates these, one point of entry to the two buildings, or the 2 points of entry total for the entire frontage, and kind of allows the vehicles to safely maneuver on site before exiting onto Mountain Ave. So you can even see on the north-hand side of the page, this car. Again, you don't have this car now having to back out into the road. Anyone that's backing out of their driveway is doing so kind of in the safety of the community that they're in.
I have no further questions.
Okay, thank you. So at this time, I'm going to open up questions to the public. I'm going to allow 2 minutes for call-ins, although I understand we have call-ins but I'm going to allow 2 minutes for call-ins and 3 minutes for your questions. 3 minutes for questions. And I'm asking for anyone who wants to call in, it would be for questions of Mr. Klein. Okay,
Madam
that's it.
Chair,
Yes?
I have a list of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 callers.
Yes, but I want to make sure that these questions are not about the projects per se, that they are we're going to have open questions at the end. But right now, I'm looking for questions for Mr. Klein, okay, for the engineer, okay?
And also, Madam Chair, just to make clear, based on the testimony and questioning provided and the
Right.
plans.
Right, that's right, based on the testimony provided this evening. So if anyone has any questions of Mr. Klein based on his testimony, okay, please call in at 973-321-1579. Meeting ID is 711-680-001. Okay, allow, again, 2 minutes for call-ins, 3 minutes for questions. So since you have 5 people on the line, please put your first caller through.
Okay, I have Miss Carolina Vega. If you could unmute yourself by pressing *6. Miss Vega, are you there?
Ms. Vega, are you there?
Hello?
Yes, Ms. Vega?
Yes, hi. I don't have questions. I do have objections. So I don't know if the objections are going to be taken at the end.
Yeah, they'll be taken at the end. There'll be a portion that you can then express your thoughts then. Right now, these are strictly for questions of Mr. Klein, the engineer.
Okay, that's fine. I don't have any.
Okay,
Madam Chair, I just want to be clear that the objections or comments that will be made at the end will not necessarily be made tonight. It will be
That's
made
correct.
at the conclusion of the actual application, which could be at another night or maybe a subsequent night after that. So we will
Correct.
be announcing that later on this evening in the event the application is not concluded.
That's correct. Okay, so please put your next caller through.
I'll call out the name, and then if they do have a question, they can unmute themselves by pressing *6. Joyce Colton, Miss Joyce Colton.
I see Ms. Colton.
Hi, no question or comment at the end.
Okay, thank you. Next caller.
Mr. Octavio Aguilar.
Aguilar, I see him. Any questions, Mr. Aguilar, of Mr. Klein, the engineer, based on his testimony?
I I have no questions for the engineer. I just wanted to make a comment about the
Okay.
project at the
All
end.
right, then you'll save it for the end, thank you.
That is
Next
all,
caller?
Madam Chair.
That's
That
it?
is all. We now, the 2 people left.
Okay, so then I'll open it up now. Mr. Guzman, would you call your next witness, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to call John Korak.
Where's John?
Actually, Madam Chair, given the extent of this application, we might want to ask the commissioners if they have any questions of the engineer before we go to the next witness.
I was gonna save him after all of the witnesses, but if you think we should do it now, I'll be happy to do that. Commissioners,
I think we should, Madam Chair, only because, again, if the application doesn't conclude,
you're right.
this is gonna have to come back if they're not necessarily.
You're correct. Well
Thank you.
noted. Okay, so let me ask the commissioners, any questions of Mr. Klein based on his testimony? Commissioners? Okay, I don't hear anything from our commissioners, so, okay, I'm gonna ask Mr. Guzman to call his next witness, and your next witness is,
John Korak.
and
Good
John
evening.
Korak, I see him, okay. All right, please be sworn in.
I just swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Under penalty of perjury, and please state and spell your name for the record.
Sure, it's John Korak, last name spelled C-O-R-A-K.
And your credentials, please?
Certainly. I'm a licensed professional engineer in the state of New Jersey. I have a Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering from the College of New Jersey. I'm an expert in the field of traffic and transportation engineering. I've testified before over 60 boards within the state of New Jersey, and I've appeared before Paterson Planning Board and zoning boards on more than 24 occasions for various applications.
Yes, and we do accept you as an expert witness. And I will ask, does anyone have any objections to us accepting him as an expert witness? Mr. Baglione?
No objection, Your Honor. My only question would be, Mr. Korak, can you kindly tell us when you received your license within the state of New Jersey?
A license was granted in New Jersey in 2019.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, so Mr. Dockery?
No objection, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Mr. Guzman, do you want him to proceed?
Yes, please. Thank you. Mr. Korak, are you familiar with the project at 3660 Mountain Avenue in Paterson?
Yes, I am.
And could you please describe your traffic study with respect to this project?
Of course. So I prepared a traffic and parking assessment report. The last revision date, or the date of the report, is March 31st, 2022. This report was, as Mr. Deutsch mentioned, reviewed by the City of Paterson's traffic engineer. And the report itself follows industry guidelines published by the Institute of Transportation Engineers. In preparation for the report, we do make a site visit to the site, review the site conditions, the surrounding roadway network, and of course review the proposed development plan on the parcel itself. I'm going to go ahead and put that plan back up on the screen. This was the same site plan rendering exhibit that was shown by Mr. Klein during his testimony. Great. So can everyone see the screen?
We can see.
I could see it.
Great. Thank you. So as
Actually, Mr. Clark, is there a way that you can enlarge it a little bit?
I can try and zoom in. I'm limited by. Yeah. Okay. Great. Great. And so the site itself fronts on Mountain Avenue, a Mountain Avenue general north-south roadway. It's a local roadway within the city of Paterson, and of course to the south within the borough of Woodland Park. It provides a connection essentially from a Rifle Camp Road to the south, and then connects up to New Street to the north via Dixon Avenue. A local roadway, one lane of travel in each direction. The current site conditions along the site frontage, there's no curb, there's no sidewalk. Those are items that are that are going to be included as part of the proposed development plan. The development itself consists of 16 townhouse units spread across 4 buildings. Those 4 buildings each provide 4 units. They each provide a 2-car driveway with a 15-foot wide one-car garage. So that one-car garage gives a little bit extra width to not only park an automobile, but again to essentially store extra storage, notably trash containers that would be provided for each individual unit. Each building would be served by buildings 1 and buildings 2 would each share a single access point out to Mountain Avenue, and buildings 3 and 4 would likewise share their own access point to Mountain Avenue. And what that does from a traffic perspective, as Mr. Klein touched on before, is that it limits the amount of access points, limits the amount of curb cuts, and creates a development unlike the one to the north where traffic does not have to back out onto Mountain Avenue in order to leave the site. Essentially, a vehicle that is within the driveway of one of the buildings, they back out into that central drive aisle, that 24-foot wide drive aisle, and then pull forward in order to leave the site. So that creates a more favorable maneuvering condition as compared to the development to the north, and it's one of the reasons that the buildings were aligned the way they are. Traffic generated by a development of this size is more or less negligible. We did review the trip generation of the project utilizing the Institute of Transportation Engineers trip generation manual. This is the industry standard for forecasting traffic impacts. We look at those traffic impacts from a peak hour perspective. How many cars are coming to and from the site over the course of the busiest hour in the morning, the busiest hour in the evening, and the busiest hour on Saturday, midday, that sort of peak time period, whether you're out running errands, shopping, etc. For development of this size, what we see is a peak hour trip generation of between 6 and 7 vehicles over the course of the hour. So about 1 vehicle every 10 minutes coming to or leaving the site itself. And the reason for that is that, say, commuting in the morning or coming back in the evening, not everyone is actually fitting in their commute within that single hour. Some people leaving earlier than the peak hour window. Say it occurs between 7:30 and 8:30 in the morning. You might leave at 7 o'clock. Someone else might leave at 8:45. You also have a greater presence of work from home. You have a greater presence of off-shift work where maybe you're not working that standard 9 to 5. Ultimately, all these factors combined lend to a trip generation that is less than 1 per unit for a development of this kind. As such, at a trip generation rate, at a volume added rate to the surrounding roadway network of about 1 car every 10 minutes, this would not have any adverse impact on Mountain Avenue, would not have any adverse impact to any of the collector roads to the north or south of the development. And ultimately, the conclusions from our traffic study that this project would not have any substantial impact on the roadway network are confirmed through those trip generation numbers and the limited number of vehicles being added. As far as parking is concerned on the site, we are required a total of 38 parking spaces for the 16 units. We do provide 48 spaces, which is in accordance with the residential site improvement standards. We do provide RSIS compliant 24-foot wide drive aisles. The driveway parking spaces are 18 by 18 in accordance with the RSIS. And ultimately, this development as designed from a traffic and circulation perspective has been done so in accordance with those residential site improvement standards and accepted traffic engineering industry guidelines. With that, that concludes my testimony regarding traffic impacts of this project.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Guzman, do you have any questions?
I have no further questions of Mr. Korak, Madam Chair.
Okay, Mr. Baglione, do you have any questions of Mr. Korak based on his testimony?
Yes, thank you very kindly. Again, good evening, Madam Chairwoman and honorable members of the board. Good evening, Mr. Korak. Previously, you said there was a site visit to the property. Did you make that site visit, or was it another member of your firm who made the site visit?
I made a site visit as well as another member of my firm.
I'd like to focus upon you. Can you kindly tell us the day of the week and the date that you made your site visit? I
don't have the date offhand. It was a weekday. in March. We prepared this study at the,
You had stated your report is dated March 31st, 2022.
Yeah.
Would it be consistent about a week before that?
correct.
Can you tell us the time of day that you appeared at the site for your site visit?
It was about mid-afternoon,
And how long were you on the site?
about 30 minutes.
And you had told us that you had used a standard for trip generations to determine there should be about 6 vehicles, give or take, per hour for trip generation at peak time.
Correct.
Can you kindly tell us, in your analysis, what you determined to be the peak time for trip generation?
Yeah, so the peak hour, regardless of the specific window it happens, what we look at is, generally speaking, a 1 hour period between 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. and a 1 hour period between 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. So the trip generation associated with the project would fit into the busiest hour within that window.
Can you tell us what your study determined to be the minimum number of vehicles which would be on the site as part of your trip generation analysis?
When you say on the site, like, I'm trying to understand specifically what you're looking for.
Sure. You had told us that you anticipate trip generation of 6 vehicles per hour at a peak time. I'd like to know what you envision the minimum number of vehicles to be on the whole site for all 16 units as part of that study.
As in the vehicles parked?
Yes, or assigned to a particular unit.
Right, so each unit can park up to 3 vehicles. Typical, townhouse developments that we've seen in the counts that we've done at similar sites would have usually 1 to 2 vehicles per unit. I would say, at a minimum, let's call it 1.5 times 16, that's 24 vehicles.
And it could, I guess, based on, these are 3-bedroom units, could possibly go up because you have parking for 3 units at a possible maximum per unit.
Right, we have a parking supply of 48 spaces.
Are there other spaces available outside of the use of the garage and driveways?
On the site, no.
And are you aware as to whether or not parking is permitted on Mountain Avenue in either Paterson or Woodland Park?
I didn't see restrictions in the city of Paterson regarding parking. I have noted that vehicles do park there under present conditions.
Did you, on your site visit, did you observe any vehicles parked on Mountain Avenue?
1 or 2.
Were they in the street or on the aprons of properties?
On the street across from the development. So not on the site side, not on the aprons, but across the street, so to speak.
I thank you very kindly. I have no further questions for you at this time, subject to further cross-examination by any party here too, board member or member of public. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Dockery?
Good evening, thank you, and thank you, Mr. Korak. I just wanted to follow up on Mr. Buglione's questions regarding guest parking. Does your study at all have any sort of analysis with regards to guest parking?
So the study, I don't believe, mentions the guest parking. I can note that the residential site improvement standards does require 0.5 spaces per unit be available for guest parking.
And it was your testimony that the current site plan doesn't allow for any guest parking at this point?
It doesn't have formal dedicated guest parking. What's typical for townhouse applications like this one is the ability to use driveway space if a unit doesn't have, ownership of 3 vehicles at their unit. That would leave at least 1 driveway space open. Also, on-street parking can be utilized for guest parking as per the residential site improvement standards.
This may be a question for another witness, but if you can answer this, are there any improvements contemplated for the development that would foster better street parking than is currently available?
I think that the provision of formal curb line along the site frontage is helpful, but beyond that, I'm not aware of any other improvements related to additional off-site parking.
So in other words, if you can answer this, so if someone were to park parallel on Mountain Avenue, would those vehicles in either direction be blocking the street at all after this particular development is built?
No, the Mountain Avenue currently has a 30-foot width of paved space, and that's sufficient to allow for a parked vehicle along our frontage and still maintain that 2-way traffic flow.
So there's no plans for, I guess, cutouts along the property for specifically parallel parking along the property?
No intention of modifying that curb line. There's no curb there today, but modifying that for cutouts, no. We prefer to keep that as green space.
Okay, all right. And just the last question, does your traffic study take into account any actual real-world data on Mountain Avenue?
So we didn't conduct counts with this traffic study. It's not customary to do so for development of the size. Whether this is a project in Paterson or any other municipality, typically do not conduct counts. And if this were to be submitted to DOT or state county or any other entity, that this is what the study would look like.
So would it be fair to say also then that did your study contemplate traffic usage of Mountain Road by not only Garrett Mountain Estates, but also Garrett Heights condominium?
Right. So we understand that Mountain Avenue, does carry traffic not just for the proposed development, but the other uses in the vicinity. It could work as a cut through, although it's kind of a roundabout cut through to get through, but it does serve traffic for those uses.
And are you aware of how many units Garrett Heights has at the moment?
I'm going to object, Madam Chair. That's irrelevant, and he already has a report that's been submitted.
My question is regarding the use of traffic and whether the study contemplates.
Excuse me, Mr. Dockery. Mr. Guzman, your objection is noted, but the witness can answer the question. If he has the ability to do so, I'm sorry.
The project to the north?
The project to the west.
The west, I don't have that number. It's much greater than the 16 units proposed, but I don't have that number.
So would it be fair to say that your study did not take into special considerations the traffic usage by the Garrett Heights condominium?
Not directly.
And would it also be fair to say that your traffic study did not take into account the traffic usage by Garrett Mountain Estates or the adjoining properties in Woodland Park specifically?
Right. So Garrett Mountain Estates, I'm familiar, it's about 20 units, to my understanding, for that project. But the direct focus of the traffic study was the addition of the 16 units.
I believe it's 8 units, but
well, sorry, there's 2 buildings.
I believe it's 8.
I counted mailboxes, so that's where I'm coming from. So
fair enough. Fair enough. That's all the questions I have. Thank you.
Great.
I just had one note that I wanted to bring to Mr. Acquaviva's attention. Mr. Acquaviva,
Yes.
the document that's on the screen that was prepared by Stoenfeld and testified to by Mr. Klein states that it was prepared on September 15th, 2022, which was last Thursday. And I can state, and I don't know if counsel for Garrett Heights, I never received a copy of that document. So Mr. Klein and Mr. Carroll may have been testifying. We'll have to take that up to you, but I wanted to point it out now because it's on the screen. These individuals were testifying to documents that the objectors were not provided.
Understood, Mr. Buglione. And I'll ask you first, Mr. Korak, since you're actually giving testimony now. I'm looking at the date that Mr. Buglione is referring to, September 15th, 2022. It doesn't refer to it as a revision. It states that it was repaired on that date. Can you comment on that and provide some light on that for me, please?
Yeah, so what we like to do for these planning board presentations, and this really is to help the board and to the public understand what is being shown on the screen instead of just the black and white plans. We take that site plan document and we provide color on it. That way you can differentiate the buildings, the driveways, the landscaping areas. All of those components are easier to see, but dimensionally and from an engineering perspective, this plan is exactly identical to the site plan sheet, which was as part of the package that was submitted. This is, I'm showing here, this is the site plan sheet C4.
Okay, so is it your testimony that aside from the color shading and obviously, well, the color shading on the plan in front of us right now, prepared September 15th, 2022, that is the exact same plan that was submitted to this board in support of the application?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. Mr. Buglione, your objections certainly noted. I believe he's cleared it up. I'm not sure to your satisfaction, but he's cleared it up.
No. We're going to make a motion to dismiss the application as incomplete and it can be resubmitted. We feel that we would have to really study this more. There's no reason why we weren't provided this particular document, especially in light of the fact that it was only prepared 3 days ago. But I do understand, Mr. Acquaviva. I just wanted to state that for the record. And I appreciate your courtesy with that. And we will proceed further on that note.
Thank you. Madam Chair, I believe, well, I'm sorry, Mr. Dockery, are you finished with your questioning, Mr. Korak? I'm sorry.
Yes, but I would join in Mr. Buglione's assertion. When I requested a full set of plans provided to me, this was not included. So again, I just joined in that objection along with Mr. Buglione.
Understood, certainly understood. Madam Chair, given all of that, we can proceed. I'm assuming, I'm looking at my my notes here. Mr. Guzman has 2 more witnesses, I believe.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, but actually, we're going to take questions from the public at this point, I'm imagining.
I am going to take questions of Mr. Korak's testimony. I also understand that we have one person who has a question of Mr. Klein, but I will save that for after the questions of Mr. Korak. Okay, so at this time, if anyone in the public has any questions on the testimony, only on the testimony, okay, at this point of Mr. Korak, okay, please call in at 973-321-1579. Meeting ID is 711-680-001. I will allow 2 minutes for call-ins, 3 minutes for questions, and the questions must be to Mr. Korak based on his testimony. Do we have any callers that want to ask Mr. Korak any questions?
Madam Chair, I have
Yes.
two callers will call in. We'll call them by name and ask if they have any questions. Miss Monica Herschel.
I don't see her name up here on the screen. Her name is Monica Herschel. Herschel? Okay, is she on the line?
That's what Ryan said. We must have lost her. We'll get back to her, see if she comes back on. And then I have I'm not sure, Kendall Baranta.
I see a Kendall Barantas. Is he there?
He or she.
Oh, hi, yes, I'm here.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Barantas, okay, do you have any questions of Mr. Korak based on his testimony?
No, ma'am, no question. It was
No,
more of
okay.
just a
But no questions.
Comments could be made at the end, okay, but for now, we're just taking questions of Mr. Korak. Okay, so now there should have been one caller here, I think, for Mr. Klein.
Yes, hold on one second. That is Donnell Sharon.
I do see a Donnell Shenron.
Sharon.
Okay, it's printed differently on the screen, but that's okay. Is there a Donnell on the line?
Yes, this is Donnell on the line.
Yes, hi. Is your question for Mr. Klein?
Yes, I have some questions for Mr. Klein, and you said a minimum to a 3-minute time period, right?
Yes, I have a 3-minute time period for now, yes.
Okay. Okay, I appreciate you. Thank you guys for definitely having me and taking my call. These questions are for the engineer.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, if I can interrupt you for a second. Can you put your address and the spelling of your name and your address on the record, please?
Yes, sir. Spelling of my name is Donnell, Donnell. Last name is Shearin, and I'm currently residing at 152 East 33rd Street, Paterson, New Jersey. I'm a residential homeowner.
Thank you. You can proceed.
Thank you, sir. The nature of my call is, number one, I'm looking to possibly relocate out of Paterson, and I've been paying really close attention to this new development that's happening over at Garrett Heights over there. My question is to the engineer. If me coming over and being a new resident over there, number one, I saw that you had a height variance of 3 stories, but I saw a news article saying it was 5 stories. I don't expect you to answer anything yet, but can you verify on the record if it's going to be 3 stories or 5 stories? Number two, the other question is, in this location that you're looking to do this redevelopment at, is this within a flood zone area? Because I know it's habitual that over in the West Paterson area, it gets really flooded over there. And if it's a flood zone area, should the residents be notified of that? So if possible, they may have to take out flood insurance just in case in that area.
Mr. Chairman, let me interrupt you one thing at a time. So, Mr. Klein, can you verify the number of stories in the building?
No problem. Appreciate it. I was trying to write everything down. So to clarify, 35 feet, 3 stories is required, and all buildings 1 through 4 are all 3-story buildings.
Okay, and then to Mr. Sherman's next question about the property being in a flood zone. Is it in a federal flood zone?
And
Did you know that answer?
Sorry, one more time.
I'm sorry?
Is it in a flood zone?
Correct. I'm just confirming on the map. So the site.
Excuse me, Mr. Klein. Somebody's phone is on. Can
Somebody's phone is on, yes. Got to go off.
Madam Secretary, this continues. Is there any way we can have them muted?
Yeah, they can mute it, but I'm looking and there's nobody that is unmuted.
That is really weird. Okay, but all right. So,
Mr. Klein, you can answer the question.
Yeah.
Yep, I don't mind continuing. So it is not located within a flood zone.
And as far as the third question I heard from you, Mr. Shenron, about the possible requirement of people in the area having flood insurance. First, I would assume that's outside the expertise of Mr. Klein in his testimony tonight, but he did just answer the question that the property is not in a flood zone. So if he's accurate in that answer, then obviously there would be no flood insurance required.
Okay.
Somebody's got a background phone on. I hear it. And
Madam Chair, that's coming from Mr. Sharon's phone.
Okay, well, that really, if you're taking questions, excuse me, Mr. Sharon, if you're taking questions from somebody else in the background, please mute it, because we can't hear it, and we have to take testimony here. It's very important that we do this evening, okay?
Okay. I'm in a secluded office with my door closed, so I don't know.
I don't know
where that's coming from, but.
Okay, your last question?
Okay. Actually, my other question is, being that you confirmed that it was a 3-story variance, is there a state requirement that it requires to have fire escapes, or like you know what I mean, just in case of emergencies? Is there a state requirement or something that you got to have a fire escape adjacent to these developments?
Mr. Sharon, let me just interrupt you again. You inadequately referred to a 3-story variance. There is no variance needed for the number of stories. The number of stories that minimum requirements that the city has is 3. What's being proposed is 3. So there's no requested variance for the number of stories.
Okay, and my last question is, with these developments, I know, are you guys going to have a specific area where you're going to have, I hate to say this, but garbage dumpsters? Where are you going to place these garbage dumpsters at for these large developments?
Right, that would not be for this, this witness.
That would probably be for the architect, I would imagine.
That's
Unless
correct.
Mr. Klein, if you can answer,
okay,
fine. Otherwise, we can move it to the architect.
That's very important. That's very important because pollution, the animals up there, the bears, all kinds of things. You got to take that into consideration.
Okay, so I'm going to go
my
back to
questions. I'm
Mr.
done.
Klein. Okay, I'm going to ask Mr. Klein, can you answer that? If not, he can save that. We can answer that question when we talk with the architect. Mr. Klein, can you answer that?
The architect will give more detail, but no trash will be contained exterior to the unit. So the trash will be contained within the garages.
All right, so we'll get more from that when we talk to Mr. Evans. And so at this time,
Madam Chair, before we go to the, I would assume the commissioners, Madam Secretary pointed out something to me. Mr. Klein or Mr. Korak, if you can, in regard to the color shaded plans that are dated September 15th, that we had some testimony on before, since they, even though according to Mr. Korak, they're the exact same plans except for the color shade, they are an additional submission. So I would like to have them marked as an exhibit for tonight. Madam Secretary, I'm assuming we're on A1, right? I didn't believe there's anything else.
A1, yes, we don't have anything.
So can somebody put those plans up very quickly? And then Madam Secretary, I guess electronically, if you can mark those as A1 and then we can move on. Okay, those plans are dated September. It is a site plan. I guess, Madam Secretary, it's a color shaded site plan dated September 15th, 2022 from Stonefield Engineering.
Okay, and I'm going to ask Mr. Klein if he can electronically sign them and email them to me, and I will add it as an exhibit to the file.
And if you send me a copy, I'll attach it to the transcript.
Yes, I will. If possible, if you could print it out as well and mail it to me, an original.
We will send hard copies as well as the electronic versions.
Thank you, Mr. Klein. Madam Chair, I have 2 more callers with questions for our last witness, for Mr. Korak. And that is, now we have Ms. Monica Hersel. Ms. Hersel, can you unmute yourself, *6? Madam Chair, you're muted.
Ms. Herschel, I don't see her.
Yeah, she's there. Monica Hersel.
Right. Is she there? Because I don't see it on the screen.
Okay. Yeah, it's there. I see it. So you can scroll down.
Okay, is she there? I'm asking.
I just asked her to unmute herself. She hasn't. Ms. Hersel, if you can hear me, please unmute yourself by pressing *6. If not, I'm going to go ahead and move on to the second person, Ms. Lisa Bateman. Ms. Bateman, if you can hear me, please unmute yourself by pressing *6.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, your question is for Mr. Korak?
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. In regards, Mr. Korak, to your traffic study.
I'm sorry. Wait, hold on one second. I need your name, I need you to state your name and your address for the record, please.
My name is Lisa Bateman. I'm the property manager at Garrett Heights Condominium at 64 Boulder Run Road, Paterson, New Jersey, 07501.
Okay, I didn't know that that's who we were talking to, but okay.
Before we do that, I want to ask Mr. Dockery. Mr. Dockery, you represent the association, correct?
I do, and I know Miss Bateman, correct.
Okay, do you have any issues with Ms. Bateman testifying on her own or questioning on her own in this application?
I have no issue.
Okay, Ms. Bateman, you can proceed.
Okay, your question for
Yes,
Mr.
thank you
Korak?
so much, gentlemen.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. My question is this, in regards to the traffic study, was any consideration given or was there any data or documentation provided to parking within the area in regards to public events such as the most recent State County Fair, which caused extreme congestion in the past with the traffic and obstructions and limitations to residents getting to and from their homes? Was this considered at all?
Now, there was no direct study of those parking impacts along Mountain Avenue or any other streets. What I will note, though, is that the development itself is compliant with respect to parking, that we do exceed the minimum parking requirement.
Alrighty, that was my question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, is the other person who we couldn't get on the line, is she there now? Madam Secretary?
Ms. Monica Hersel, can you hear me? Okay. Go ahead,
Yes,
Ms. Hersel.
hi, this is Monica.
Yes, hi.
I think actually I have just a general comment, so
No,
I didn't know if I would do that.
Yeah, no, the comments we're going to take at the end, so just hold your comments for the end. If you have any question of Mr. Korak on the engineering study, the traffic study, that would be great. If not, just save your comments at the end, please. Okay, this time I'm going to open it up to the commissioners. Commissioners, any questions of Mr. Korak? Okay, I don't hear any questions from the commissioners. So I'm going to turn it back over to Mr. Guzman. I'm sorry, yes?
Madam Chairwoman, just a request if possible. At some point, could we have a 5-minute fresh air break?
Actually, this might be a good time to do the fresh air break.
I'm very grateful. Thank you so much.
Okay, so we're going to take a 5-minute break here and we'll be back. Okay, we're off the record.
Okay, we're off the record.
Is everyone back? Mr. Aquaviva, are you back?
I am back.
Okay. Okay, it looks like everyone else is back. Okay,
Madam Chair, once we're on the record, I have to do roll call again.
yes, I understand. I'm just looking to see who else is signed on here. Okay. All right, let's get back on the record and please do the roll call. Thank you.
Mary Beth, are we on the record? You're muted.
She's muted.
I didn't realize I was muted, sorry, we're on the record.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Figueroa,
Present.
Commissioner Liranzo,
Present.
Commissioner Roman,
Present.
Commissioner Amar, Commissioner, thank you. Madam Vice Chair Santana,
Present.
and Madam Chair Northrop.
Present.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to turn it back over now to Mr. Guzman. Mr. Guzman, would you like to call your next witness?
Yes, I'd like to call Matt Evans, please.
Okay, Madam, we need to swear Mr. Evans in.
Right here with Nestor.
Swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under penalty of perjury.
Yes, I do. Matthew Evans, architect, 470 Chamberlain Ave, Paterson, New Jersey. Presently licensed in the state of New Jersey as a registered architect. My license is in good standing, and I've testified before this board many times.
Yes, thank you. We accept you as an expert witness. Anybody have any objection? Mr. Baglione?
No objection. My only statement, as I like to ask all of the witnesses, what year, sir, did you obtain your license in the state of New Jersey?
1996.
Thank you. Mr. Durup?
No objection.
Okay, all right, good. Okay, please proceed.
Thank you. Mr. Evans, did you work on the plans for 3660 Mountain Avenue in Paterson?
Yes.
And can you please describe those plans?
Okay, I'd like to start off with rendering that we've done for this project, which we've submitted as part of the application. Let me see if you can see it. Oops. Can you see that?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good. Okay, so this is basically looking at it from Mountain Avenue. We have the townhouses, 3 of them shown. The one, basically this would be the upper driveway to the right side of the rendering, and showing, this basically illustrates the materials, the scale.
Excuse me, wait, I don't mean to cut you off, Mr. Evans. I just have, I hear some background noise. So if anybody is not talking at this time, okay, or any members of the public, you need to mute yourself, please. Thank you.
And also, Madam Chair, if I may, Mr. Evans, I missed what you said at the beginning. Was this part of the submissions in support of the application?
Yes, we made copies that were submitted with the along with the plans.
And are they essentially what we're looking at right now?
Yes, this is just basically one rendering. It basically illustrates, we've taken it off the site plan and showing the...
Okay, before you can continue with your testimony, Madam Secretary, let's mark this as A2 since it appears to be, I guess, an enhanced drawing. So if we can mark this as A2. And Mr. Evans, what date was this prepared?
Last year. Let me get actual date that it was done. It was give me 1 second here. 6/22/21.
So Madam Secretary, if you could just call this, I guess, A2, artist rendering dated, what was the date again? Mr. Evans, June?
6/22/21.
June 22, 2021.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. Can you please also sign, mark the date, your signature, email to me, and
Okay.
originals as well with your original signatures. Thank you.
All right.
You can continue, Mr. Evans.
All right, so the rendering shown, 622. So we're showing this as part of, just to give you a sense of the, of a three-dimensional look on, from what it is like on, looking from Mountain Avenue, showing the materials, the size, the landscaping along Mountain Avenue, and some of those site improvements we've illustrated as part of the rendering. I can, what else we can do is, let me share the architecturals. Give me a second here. Okay, so what we have a two-sheet submission, SK1 and SK2. Those were submitted as part of the application. Let me get the date from the right. 4/16/21. So looking at the sheets, we have two sheets, as I mentioned, SK1, SK2. Looking at the units are typical. So each townhouse is basically as a single family townhouse. So it's from the ground to the sky, it's one unit. And those would be consistent with, normal townhouse design, which would be a single family dwelling unit. We approached it as far as townhouses because we felt that the townhouse design is similar to the townhouse style of the neighboring properties. It's consistent with the scale, the density, and character.
Can you turn the sound off?
So we felt that it's.
Wait, hold on.
All right.
Okay, I really am going to ask for the last time. This is
Madam
it.
Chair, I'm sorry. Ryan is on top of it. He is muting everybody as they come in.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay?
Thank you.
Okay, so basically just going, before we approach this as a townhouses, as I mentioned, because a predominant area is townhouse style design. We wanted to keep in the scale, density, and character of that. It is an R3 zone, and we looked at other approaches for residential, and some of the approval permitted uses in that are in the R3 is low-rise multifamily apartment buildings, which are permitted to go 80 feet high, 7 stories, and also allowed 50 units per acre. So we have a little over an acre, and as you can see, what we've provided with 16 units is a lot less intense than the permitted use for apartments. Going to the ground floor plan, let me show you. We have the one-car garage. It's a large garage. It's almost 15 by 19, and we have ability to park a car, single car, and also have area for refuse, recycling, storage, and other extended use of that garage for those type of applications. We have the front is a main entry. It's a covered porch. Then we have a foyer, which has stairs going up. And then we have the hallway to the rear. It's a wide hallway. We have a study, a powder room, a mechanical room, and a closet. We show a patio deck and a sliding glass door and window to the rear. Going to the next plan, which is the second floor plan, you come up the stairs and you enter into a large open living room. We have a powder room, a pantry, and in the rear section of the townhouse, there's a large open dining room and a kitchen with a nice island and seating around that. And then we have the kitchen cabinets on the right side of that. And we have a deck also from the kitchen, has a little 4-foot deep deck that goes outside for the kitchen area. We have the top floor, that's the 3rd floor plan. You come up and we have a stackable laundry room. We have 3 bedrooms. So all those bedrooms, we show the furniture in the bedrooms, so you can see how it can fit a queen-size bed in all these bedrooms, along with night tables and bureaus, etc. We have closets, ample closet space for each of these bedrooms. And then we have linen, regular closet, and then we have a shared bathroom for those 2 rear bedrooms. And then the front, we have a large master bedroom with walk-in closets, 2 walk-in closets, and a master bathroom with a tub, toilet, and 2 sinks. Looking at the elevation, the front elevation of a typical unit, let me go to that. So you can see how we mix the materials. We wanted to give it some aesthetic appeal. We have a mix of shaker style shingles, and then horizontal clapboard siding, stone veneer on the ground level, along with a craftsman entry and a craftsman garage door, along with those aesthetic improvements on what we're proposing. Looking at going down the page, we show the rear elevation of buildings 1 through 3. And as I mentioned, we had the deck, the patio, and then the deck above for the rear sections of those. One thing I didn't mention is that all these units, every other unit will be stepping 2 feet. So it breaks up the facade. And as you saw on the rendering, it would step back 2 feet to give it not a monotonous look, but it will give it more an aesthetic curb appeal character. Looking at the front entrance, so that shows the 4 units together, and showing how they would, the materials and the scale of those buildings complement each other. I think, then we just show the side elevations. The left side elevation and the right side elevation are pretty similar in character. Now, with the difference of building number 4, where it was mentioned previously about the elevation change, we have that where we do, due to the elevation, it's a little taller in the rear of that unit, with that block there. So we would have some steps going up to that level for the ground floor level on that one. So looking at that, those are basically the 2 sheets submission showing the preliminary architectural plans for the development. So that would be consistent with all 4 buildings, those plans and elevations, and also the rendering.
So, Mr. Evans, there was a previous question regarding construction staging. Would you be able to comment on that with this project?
I don't know exactly how, but it's standard construction. I don't think there would be any impact on the neighboring properties. A lot of these developments that we do in Paterson, consist of 0 lot line conditions, mostly downtown or in the denser areas where you need to shore up buildings or other conditions. This has, I believe, would not negatively impact the surrounding properties and would be standard construction. We've done similar townhouses built in North Haledon and Ramsey and other parts of New Jersey and Waldwick. And this is consistent with those type of units. And we've never had any problem during construction with these. They're single families, so I don't see a problem with it.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Evans. I have no further questions of Mr. Evans.
Okay, so I'm going to open up the questions. Mr. Baglione?
Yes, thank you very kindly. Good afternoon, rather good evening, Mr. Evans. Can you kindly tell us the square footage for each unit that is proposed tonight?
Okay, hold on, let me go back to my. Okay, I did gloss over it. I could share it again.
You could give us the number.
Do you want the number? All right, so they're all the same. And we have, the garage is 286 square feet. The first floor, without the garage, is 639 gross square feet. The second floor is 948 gross square feet. The third floor is 948 square feet. And the total is 2,821 gross feet for each unit. So that meets the minimum requirement for a 3-bedroom would be 1,100 square feet. So we meet or exceed that 1,100. We have 2,821 square feet.
What is the square footage for the entire building containing 4 units?
So let me get so we'd have 2,821 times 4 is 11,284 square feet.
Are there basements for these?
No.
Are there attics or attic storage for these?
There's going to be, in accordance to the code, we need to have like a scuttle or a drop-down stair that would access an unfinished attic that may have an air handler or some kind of HVAC system up there, which would limit the use to that. And normally we would not propose any storage or any other use for these otherwise.
And I guess that would be in the discretion of the individual homeowner or home occupier, whether or not they would put storage.
Right, we don't, a liability, we don't want anybody really going up there, so we don't really make a stair or anything else like that. It would just be limited to maintenance.
On the first floor, is there an ability for someone to add a kitchen or an entertainment room?
There's basically a den or a study, more of a recreational room, but we do not propose anything of that nature.
Are there bathrooms on the first level?
There's a powder room on the first floor. So it's limited to basically a powder room, and it doesn't have the ability to do anything else but just have that additional usability.
In the presentation this evening, it was stated a variance is sought for front yard setback. My question to you is, how many properties on Mountain Avenue are set back only 10 feet from the curb line, if you know?
I don't know. I didn't take any measurements or anything.
Same question with regard to the rear yard setback. Presentation through the attorney and testimony from the other experts is that the variance sought this evening is for an 8 foot 9-inch setback from the rear yard where there's a 25-foot requirement. Same question, different context. How many other properties on Mountain Avenue are set back 8.9 feet from the rear property line, if you know? Well,
what we did with this townhouse development, basically it's we consider the rear of the units as the rear, so we're looking between the units at 25 feet. Basically, what you're seeing on that 8.9 condition is basically a side elevation. So looking at the townhouses, the middle units would not have any windows. The end units have a window, but it's basically at the stairwell. So I don't think it would negatively impact the surrounding properties, and therefore, by the way we situated the buildings on the property, I don't think, as I mentioned, the setbacks are, we use that 25 between the buildings.
No, I understand. And the question was, have you seen any other properties on Mountain Avenue that either on the side or the rear are only 8.9 feet from the back property line?
I didn't know, I don't know the dimensions.
There's also testimony from other experts, as well as the presentation from the attorney, that there is going to be a variance sought for height, for maximum height to be 38 feet 5 inches. Question in the same context, in your analysis of this area, are there any other properties abutting Mountain Avenue that have a height that exceeds 30 feet?
I'm not aware of any, those developments, if they had variances for the height of their buildings, or, were approved with height variances, but I haven't looked at that. But as I mentioned, the zone permits up to 80 feet and 7 stories with multifamily.
No, I understand, and that was your testimony. I was focusing just on Mountain Avenue itself, and from your testimony, it's fair to state that you're unaware of any building directly on Mountain Avenue that exceeds 30 feet.
I haven't measured any of the buildings.
The engineer, Mr. Klein, stated that some issues with regard to parking should be presented to you. Do you agree or disagree with him that you would be in a better position to answer parking questions?
Well, the only thing regarding parking, we submit a lot of applications to the city of Paterson, and this application in front of the planning board and others in front of the Board of Adjustment, this is one of the few applications that exceeds the park. We have we don't meet the parking. We have excess of parking as far as requirements, and I think that the way we designed this, and we were very conscientious of providing as much parking and keeping it as low intensity as possible. And I believe that limiting that the development to 2 curb cuts, we have a very long street frontage, which will allow on-street parking in addition to the excess parking that we supply on our property.
You have 3-bedroom units spec'd out here.
Yes.
And feasibly, with a family of 4, you could have 4 vehicles per household.
Objection, Madam Chair. This is speculative, and everyone has to comply with the city and local ordinances. This presumes that there's going to be scofflaws and things of that nature.
Madam Chair,
this is an expert. I'm sorry.
Madam Chair, I tend to agree. Yes, I tend to agree with Mr. Guzman. The objection should be sustained. It is speculative, Mr. Guglielmo. If you would like to rephrase the question, certainly feel free to do so.
Sure. I'm not speculating, but ultimately and legally, with a 3-bedroom home, you've spec'd out a master bedroom, assuming that there's a couple that would be using a master bedroom, and 2 bedrooms. You could have up to 4 drivers at a minimum in a home who have 4 vehicles.
Well, we could have no vehicles too. That's why we're just going by the standards presented for standard parking and RSIS parking standards and the ordinance.
Now, you said you have developed townhomes in other places.
Yes.
Are you aware of any of those townhome developments where there's a unit with no vehicles at all?
I haven't checked.
With regard to street parking, how many spaces could be utilized along Mountain Avenue?
I don't know exactly. I haven't calculated it, but by limiting those curb cuts to 2, we, like as was mentioned in previous testimony, adjacent to our property, it's basically one long curb cut. And what we've done is reduce that and then allow on-street parking for not only our development, but neighboring developments or the Garrett or the county park. It would not negatively impact that.
Is parking allowed on Mountain Avenue?
I'm not sure. I think there was testimony given on parking.
Well, the testimony was he wasn't sure either, but he noticed vehicles parked across the street. I'm just asking if you're aware if it's legal to park on Mountain Avenue.
I'm not. I didn't check.
At this time, I have no further questions for you, Mr. Evans.
Thank you.
Mr. Dockery?
Yes, thank you. And thank you, Mr. Evans, for your testimony this evening. My first set of questions revolves around the first floor of the unit. And if you need to share the screen or not, that's up to you. But I thought in your testimony, and I thought I saw on the plans, that the room called the study has a closet off of it. Is that correct?
I can share it just to give clarity. Okay, let me try and zoom in a little bit. So yes, there is a closet. There's 2 closets down there, and we like to provide as many closets as possible. I mean, it's always good to provide a lot of closets in a unit. And that study has a little door out the back, but it would just be limited to, quiet enjoyment of the unit. There could either use it for additional storage or recreational room, because we only have a formal or a living room, and it might not be conducive for, more recreational use on the ground floor.
So in other words, if you can answer the question, how easy would it be to convert this into a bedroom?
Objection. I mean, that's not what we're proposing here. And we can't keep track of everyone who's going to break the law.
These are, Mr. Acquaviva, these are legitimate questions.
Mr. Berglund, could you just repeat your last question, please?
It was co-counsel's question. I was just.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Dockery. Can you? Please.
Mr. Dockery asked.
Let me see if I can.
I'm sorry. I apologize.
Let me see if I can rephrase the question. Would this study area be deemed a legal bedroom under the ordinances?
No.
What would it take to convert this to a legal bedroom?
And I'll object again, because that's not what is being offered for.
And again, I would tend to sustain the objection. Mr. Evans is testifying that it is a study. Quite frankly, anyone can do anything if they wanted to break the law. If they wanted to try to convert this study into an illegal bedroom or an illegal apartment, for that matter, it could be done just about in any project or any home. So it is speculative, and I would sustain the objection.
Okay, I'll move on. Are there any doors that would separate the first floor entryway from the upper levels?
No.
So as soon as you walk in the front door, let me see if I understand this correctly. As soon as you walk in the front door of the unit, there's sort of this hallway. You can either go back to the study or you can go up the stairs to the main living area, and there's no doors or separation whatsoever.
Right. So this is a higher end residential unit. It's a large unit, which we've proposed, and we see this as being used as a one-family unit, and that would be how we've designed them, as I mentioned, in other municipalities, and it's been very successful. And I believe that it would only be conducive for one family.
Have you, in your experience, designed successful projects in Paterson that have utilized this sort of size, particularly a 2,000 square foot, 3-bedroom townhome?
We just did townhouses around, we just got approved recently for townhouses at the Board of Adjustment on Dixon Avenue, which is a little further away. It was a 50 by 125 foot lot. We had 4 townhouses on it, similar in character to this, and that was brought to the Board of Adjustment.
And what are the square footage of those units?
They're a little smaller. The site was a little smaller, but also that would probably be the closest type of development we've done. Now, a lot of these properties in the city are smaller, and as some people have seen, people are more inclined to do multifamily rental residential units as opposed to a townhouse style design, which I think is a fresh break from some of those developments, and I think it adds, character to the area and is consistent with the neighborhood.
Going back to your testimony about the construction staging, it was your testimony that it would have no impact on the surrounding area. Can you clarify that testimony insofar that it is your testimony that Mountain Avenue would not be impeded or closed off at any point during the construction?
Well, there may be times when utilities are dug in the road, as in any development, even a one-family house on this property would have to close off maybe a section of Mountain Avenue to put a sewer line in, or gas, or other utilities, or working on curbs, et cetera. So any development would need this type of consistent with any kind of development.
Do you believe that materials would need to be stored on site?
Possibly.
So it's your testimony that there would be adequate space for equipment and materials during the duration of the construction?
Yeah, so they're basically 4 buildings. They could be built in sequence or simultaneously, but they would usually put all the foundations in. There's adequate space between the buildings, in the drive aisles, and in the rears to stage materials. So there wouldn't really need to be any off-site work.
With regards to the setback, and when I refer to the setback, I'm referring to the very long boundary between the subject development and the Garrett Heights boundary. So that would be to the west. And I guess we'd call it the rear setback, but since these are on their side, it's that 25-foot setback that I'm referring to. When you were considering complying with the bulk requirements in designing this property, can you explain why, in your professional design opinion, that this kind of variation from the setback was required to make this project successful?
Well, as I mentioned, the way the buildings are situated on the site, it's more of a side condition than a rear condition. And if, on some corner lots, you have buildings that would, you would consider that rear also a side in certain contexts, and that would be the context that you would be looking at it as far as what we've developed on this site.
But we may characterize it that way, but nonetheless, it is a 25-foot setback, and at the narrowest point, it's 8.9 feet, correct?
Yes.
So why isn't it, so what was the reasoning or rationale as to why you had to come that close to the Garrett Height property line and not respect the 25-foot setback?
Well, I mean, even though we looked at when we developed this application, that we felt there was adequate light, space, and air between our building and the Garrett Heights, which is all fully developed. We felt that it would not negatively impact that condition where we would be looking over onto the properties adjacent to ours.
Would you be able to tell me if, let's say, for example, you were required to comply with the 25-foot setback, what would that do to reduce the square footage to each unit if you had to comply with that?
Well, I don't know. I don't know if there would be a different case. I mean, we would have different configurations as you know, the site is rectilinear in plan, but there are some site grading conditions that we had to work around for this, and we felt that this was the best solution. If we came back with townhouses that either were perpendicular to this or a combination of both, they may work, but we felt that the way this is, we get a good solution to the parking and circulation and the size of the buildings, and I didn't feel it would negatively impact the neighbor.
You had testified that the minimum requirement for a 3-bedroom is 1,100 square feet, and then these are approximately 2,800 square feet. Again, if the 25-foot setback was respected, could you still meet an 1,100 square foot unit requirement?
Probably. I mean, you know, I'd have to look into it, but we want to provide. You know, we want to provide 2 spaces in front of the unit and 1 in the garage. So by doing that, it's going to significantly reduce the parking on the property, and it may negatively impact the design of requiring some of the concerns for parking and other circulation issues.
Why not simply reduce a unit in each building?
Well, I felt that, you know, right now the property, you know, the ordinance could support up to 18 units on this property. We came with 16. We're about 2,500 square feet per unit. We have 44,037 square feet. So that's, I believe it would support up to 18 units. We have 16, and we would not be seeking a variance for the permitted units. We felt that staying below that and also trying to accommodate some of those conditions, we would still have some variances that we would believe that would be de minimis in nature and not negatively impact the area.
So to that, you had mentioned when you were considering whether you were building them perpendicular or parallel with Mountain Avenue. Indeed, if you were to go with a parallel approach and abide by all the setbacks, what would that, would you be able to put in 16 units in that kind of configuration?
I'm not sure. I mean, we could maybe even fit up to 18 units. I don't know. But this is what we're proposing, and I felt that, you know, this was the most conducive for the property.
So in other words, would it be fair to say that you went with a perpendicular approach to maximize the number of units and density on the lot?
Yeah, well, no, I don't understand the question.
So you said if you did a parallel design, say similar to the neighboring property,
right,
you couldn't get the number of units. Is that fair to say?
I said I could get maybe 18. I don't know. I'm not sure. I didn't develop. I said we're permitted up to 18 units. So we're proposing 16.
So I guess.
Mr. Dockery, I'm looking at my notes. When you did ask that question, unless I'm incorrect, Mr. Evans' response was, I don't know, we could probably get 16, maybe even 18.
Fair enough.
That was the response, according to my notes.
All right, thank you. That's all for me for right now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so at this time, I'm I'm going to open it up to the public. Bear with me. All right, so if there's anyone in the public that would like to call in and has any questions of Mr. Evans only, the architect, based on his testimony, please call in at 973-321-1579. Meeting ID is 711-680-001. Madam Secretary, do we have any callers on the line presently?
I have 6. I'll call them individually and see if they have questions for this witness. Ms. Carolina Vega, do you have any questions for this witness? Please press *6 to unmute yourself. Okay, she is not answering. I'll move on to the next. Kendall Barantas. Kendall Barantas, can you hear me? If you have any questions for this witness, please unmute yourself.
For Mr. Evans.
Okay, I'll move on to the next. Mr. Octavio Aguilar, do you have any questions for this witness? Please unmute yourself, *6. Okay, Ms. Joyce Colton, if you have any questions for this witness, please unmute yourself.
No question.
Thank you, Ms. Colton. Ms. Monica Hersel, if you have any questions for this witness, please unmute yourself. Okay, moving on to the next. Mr. Benjamin Can, if you have any questions for this witness, please unmute yourself. None, Madam Chair.
Okay, so at this time I'm going to open it up. Thank you. So I'm going to open it up to the commissioners. Yes, Commissioner Santana, go ahead, please.
I'm looking into the plan, and on the second floor plan, I see that you have a half bathroom is in the middle of the kitchen and the living room. There's any reason why having a bathroom in that specific position in the room? I mean, this is the first time I see this type of design.
Right. Well, we can. We like to provide at least a powder room on the main floor for the unit. This is what we're proposing, and it's consistent with what we've done in the past. But that's basically, we want to have at least one bathroom on each floor.
I'd like to make a comment, Commissioner Santana. I actually never saw it either. However, I have a friend who lives in Wayne and is in a condo, and that's where her bathroom is, on the first floor. I don't know. To me, it looks like a very similar layout, but it may not be exact. Just saying. All right.
I mean,
yeah.
Just find it different. So I was curious to know why. But where is going to be the recycling and garbage disposal, and whether it's going to be a private company picking up the garbage, or there's going to be city pickup?
Okay, so the garage would be the main. We have a large garage, almost 15 feet wide. That gives us the ability to store refuse and recycling cans within the unit. And then on garbage days, they would wheel them out to the curb, and the city would pick them up on garbage days. And then they would bring their cans back and store them in the garage.
Thank you.
Any other commissioners?
Commissioner Liranzo,
Yes, Commissioner Lorenzo, go ahead, please.
are we gonna have cameras there? And is the units gonna be sale or gonna be rented?
I could defer to the applicant to testify.
So, Mr. Liranzo, the goal is to sell all the units, and we would be pre-selling them now if we had approvals. As far as cameras, we're definitely receptive to installing appropriate security equipment throughout the entire complex.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioners, any other commissioners? Okay, hearing none. I guess you have another witness?
Yes, Madam Chair. I actually have one of the owners here who would only confirm the application. And if we were, I believe we can get this all done tonight. I have one more witness.
I'm not sure we're gonna be able to get this done tonight, but, you know, I'd like to kind of, wrap this up probably around definitely no later than 10:30. That's a long time for all of us to be here this evening, especially after people have been working all day and then coming in here in the evening. It's a very long day for everyone. And after a while, your attention span kind of just drifts. And this is an important application. I mean, we can try for sure, but I'm just saying, I'm gonna try to wrap it up at a certain time. So, I think we should bring in, I thought I saw Mr. Williams.
He is present, and
Is that the last witness for you besides the owner?
yes.
I'd like to bring in Mr. Williams.
Okay, then I will call Mr. Williams.
Okay. Where is he? Where is he? There he is. I see him now. Okay. Okay, he needs to be sworn in.
Oops, I'm trying.
Okay.
Oh, I was over there, sorry. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under penalty of perjury?
I most certainly do.
Please state and spell your name for the record.
And good evening, commissioners and members in the audience. My name is George Weedle Williams, Williams with an S, representing the Nishwain Group at 105 Grove Street, suite number 3 and 4 in Montclair, New Jersey.
Okay, can I have your credentials, please?
Certainly. Good evening, Madam Chair, commissioners. I'm a graduate of the Rutgers Graduate School for Planning, now known as the Blaustein School of Planning and Policy Development, just to date myself a little bit. I'm licensed by the State Board of Professional Planners. The number for the license, and I just had it a second ago, preempting council's question, I hope, is 33L I00544700, and I'm told 1997 was the year of that licensure. I'm also certified by the National Institute of Certified Planners, and have been practicing in the field of planning for a little over 30 years, with a primary focus, of course, on land use, as well as a number of other planning specialities, including the writing of master plans, zoning codes, a lot of redevelopment planning, civic engagement, and expert witness testimony, of course. I have appeared before numerous land use boards throughout the state of New Jersey, including this august board, as well as the zoning board. I've had the honor of serving on my hometown zoning board of Montclair, New Jersey, and have served as an adjunct professor at Rutgers University on the topics of land use and planning for undergrads.
Mr. Williams, we accept you as an expert witness. Does anyone have any objections?
No objection.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Williams, please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Commissioners. So our office approached this application the way we do every land use engagement, and that is with a review of the local land use documents. In this case, the 2014 Paterson Master Plan and the Land Development Code, all of this in the context of the municipal land use law. I, of course, reviewed the site plan and site plan application that are before you this evening, and looked at the literature and case law that support our application this evening for you. I visited a site. I and my team have visited a site. I do not have on instant recall the date of the site visit, but I will be sharing an exhibit that includes some of the photographs taken by I and my team during at least one of those site visits. In terms of the other due diligence, we did have an opportunity, I had an opportunity to review Mr. Deutsch's planning review memo, which was read into the record for the board and the public today. In terms of the general information, I'm going to try to not be redundant, but for the record, there are a couple of things I would just reiterate, as you've heard already from prior witnesses. One is that this property is commonly referred to as 60 Mountain Avenue. It is identified in the municipal tax records as block 5103, lot numbers 11 and 12. And it is in the Garrett Mountain neighborhood, or as referred to by your board planner, the Stony Road neighborhood. And we refer to pages 06-4 of the 2014 master plan in terms of where we came up with our identification of this neighborhood. It is in the R3 high medium density residential district. This is particularly important given the comments about the density that is proposed for this project. As noted in the zoning ordinance, I'm just going to refer to my notes, Madam Chair, Commissioners, and the public. According to section 500-2.1C, the intent of the R3 is designed, and I quote, to permit a more intensive residential use of land than permitted in the R1 and R2 districts, with various types of dwelling being permitted, including, and I underscore, townhouses, garden apartment developments, and low-rise apartment buildings. The code goes on to discuss a bit more about that, but just to give this board a sense of what is being presented this evening in the context of your code, I would submit that what's being presented is, as Mr. Deutsch mentioned, permitted and appropriate.
Mr. Williams, do you have something you want to share with us, or are you going to save that for later?
I'm going to get to that in a moment, Madam Chair.
Okay, no, just want to make sure. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I'm almost there.
Okay.
I'm not going to go over the project details. I think Mr. Evans, our project architect, and our site plan engineer, as well as our traffic engineer, went through those project details, and they are, of course, indicated in the application. So I won't go through those again. The recitation of the reliefs, however, do include all of those reliefs mentioned in Mr. Deutsch's review memo, as well as reiterated by our project team. They include minimum front yard setback, where 20 feet minimum required and 15 is proposed. Minimum rear yard setback, keeping in mind that the juxtaposition of these properties or developments on Mountain Avenue are a bit different, but 25 feet required and 8.9 is proposed. Maximum building height in terms of feet, not stories, 35 feet is the maximum permitted. 38 feet 5 inches is proposed for the buildings identified by the prior witnesses for the rationale explained by those witnesses in terms of topography of the overall site. In terms of general planning observations and thoughts, I would argue to the board that the applicant is dedicated to providing a quality housing typology or product. The project is consistent with other multifamily townhouse development adjacent to the site or in the surrounding area. And if you were to approve this application, it would, in my opinion, contribute to a more cohesive neighborhood in this particular area. And of course, it would capitalize on a scenic view shed of Garrett Mountain. Normally, I reserve any review of the master plan to the end in the context of the negative criteria, as this board knows, and as council knows as well. The negative criteria for any variance includes the two-prong test. First prong is detriment to public good. Second prong is to impairment to the zone plan, which is the land use element of the master plan. In this application, I'm going to begin just to give more context with the master plan, how this application comports to the master plan. And again, this is a 2014 Paterson master plan. There are a number of goals and objectives in the master plan that, in my professional opinion as a planner, would be advanced if you were to grant the application before you this evening. One is certainly housing goal number 3, to provide opportunities for the construction and/or rehabilitation of market rate housing. Housing objective number 3C, promote infill housing development on vacant properties. Housing goal number 4, to stabilize and improve existing residential neighborhoods. And finally, Commissioner's land use goal number 1, to provide an appropriate mix of land uses balancing the needs of residential, commercial, and industrial lands with needs for civic uses and open space and recreation. Commissioners, as you know, the comprehensive plan is intended to be rather general and to give a vision for the long-term and hopefully sustainable development of a community, but those goals and objectives come directly from your master plan. I would just add very parenthetically that in the master plan on page 6.10, Garrett Mountain is a small neighborhood next to Garrett Mountain Reservation in the southwest portion of the city. And the intent is to have points in this neighborhood that take advantage of this location in the city of Paterson. Based on all of that and the rest of the testimony that I will share with you momentarily, from a broad planning perspective, I would submit to this board that there are sufficient proofs in support of the request of release. Again, a permitted use with what I would characterize as rather minimal bulk and area deviations from the requisite standards for this area, and that the board could, under the municipal land use law, grant these release. With that, Madam Chair, to your point, I will try to share my screen and bear with me.
Okay. And then maybe not. No.
Right.
I see it.
Madam Chair, Mr. Williams, was this submitted in support of the application yet?
Council, it was.
Secretary,
Yes, it was.
thank you.
That being said, Madam Chair, Council, and members of the commission and those in attendance this evening, what I am sharing on my screen is what my firm considers a relatively standard exhibit. It's rather low tech, not as fancy as Mr. Evans' renderings. It is a collection of images, some of which are taken directly from the city's land use development documents, others of which were taken during and/or my staff's visit to the site. The exhibit consists of approximately 9 pages. Don't quote me on that. We'll get to that at the end. But with that, I'll just say that all of these images are not new to the board. They are just provided to give further context for the remainder of my testimony. Again, you all know this area as well as I do, but it's again, just intended to give context.
Just one second. Mr. Acquaviva, this report indicates that it's dated September 19th, 2022, which is today.
Mr. Williams, I'm assuming that you have the date of the meeting listed?
That is correct. And council's correct. It should have said hearing date September 19th of 2022.
Okay, but just for clarification, the date that you have on the front page of September 19th, 2022 refers to the date of the planning board meeting as opposed to the date that this actual exhibit was prepared by your firm. Is that fair to state?
That is a fair characterization.
Okay, and I know Mr. Buglione's next question is going to be, do you know off the top of your head the date that this exhibit was prepared by your firm?
I do not off the top of my head. I can certainly provide that information either during the course of this hearing or at a later date. I can tell you they were all taken within a month of this hearing.
Thank you. Mr. Berglione, you have any questions on that?
Yes, if this was prepared within a month of this hearing, I never received a copy of this report.
In my understanding, though, it was made part of the application available for inspection.
The application was submitted back, I believe, in May of 2022.
Thank you. So, Mr. Williams, I'll go back to my original question. I'd asked you if this was submitted already. You indicated that it was. Madam Secretary, you indicated that we had it on file. So do either you, Mr. Williams, or Madam Secretary recall when this particular exhibit was made part of this application?
So, Mr. Acquaviva, while the board secretary is checking that on her end, I will submit to you that in my mind, there are two issues. One, when was the exhibit submitted to the board secretary? She will answer that question. I'm certain of that. The other question, which I thought was addressed to me, was when were the pictures taken? And that's an answer I am striving to get to you as we speak. It should take me another minute or two at the max. And the answers could be very different, right? So my testimony is the pictures were taken, the site visits and pictures were conducted at least a month, within a month. I'm now just confirming September 14th was the last site visit that I and my staff conducted to this area.
Thank you. So Mr. Guzman, was this part of your submissions with the application?
When I submitted the application, this was not part of my submission.
Do you recall ever submitting it?
I believe, if I could see further on in the document, I can pretty much, I think I can alert.
Madam Secretary, do we have a record of when this exhibit, you indicated that the exhibit was...
I am checking my email. I know that this was sent last week when I sent the packages out to the commissioners. This was included from an email that I received from Mr. Deutsch. Maybe Mr. Deutsch can find it faster, but I'm looking through my emails now. It's a little bit delayed here, and it's different than my actual work computer.
Okay, so let's do this. Mr. Williams, we're going to mark this as an exhibit. Madam Secretary, it'll be Exhibit A3.
Thank you, got it.
And Mr. Williams, what should I label this?
Council, I would submit to the board that this could be marked as planning exhibit photo survey.
Thank you. Mr. Berglione, certainly your objection is recognized and noted. We're going to continue with the testimony.
I know, and
whatever motions you have at the conclusion of this hearing, obviously you can make on the basis for each one.
But I still want to be heard because, again, this is the second report that was rendered within a week of this hearing that was not provided to the objectors. That's standard, that's customary, and it's a courtesy. And I would submit that this hearing should not continue. We're being sandbagged. This is highly unusual. I have never seen an applicant not produce two reports rendered within a week. To say that I am disappointed is an understatement. We will take this up. I would submit again that this application needs to be dismissed as incomplete. It is completely unfair. This is trial by ambush to show up and have an expert that I have to now cross-examine with materials that I never received.
I think very late. We certainly understand your objection. The fatality of, you want to call it this potential error, I do not see it as a fatal defect. I certainly understand any motion that you will make and what you will submit in support of it. But I'm going to advise the board to continue with the application. And certainly, again, your objection is noted, it's recognized, and you have every ability to make whatever motion you need to make at the conclusion of this hearing based upon whatever premise you want to base it upon.
And just to be clear for the record, this is the second report. Just
understood. I think the board is very clear with that. You made yourself very clear with that. Thank you.
I would also, for the record, like to join in that objection insofar that there was an idea that maybe this whole application would be concluded this evening. And I would only say that if that would be improper, that at least that once the expert testimony is completed tonight, that both myself and Mr. Buglione would have an opportunity to review these materials and present our own experts if this was carried to another night. So I put that further objection on the record for both my client as well.
Mr. Acquaviva?
Yes.
Okay, I have the date of the email that it was received by the office on September 9th. We received the link with all the files for tonight, any additional files. So we do have a link received September 9th. And as for this particular link, I sent an email to Mr. Dockery on Monday. On Friday for all the files, the same particular link. That Mr. Buglione didn't have that. I was not aware of that. Mr. Dockery requested the information.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Mr. Dockery, your objection is noted as well, and certainly, given where we are right now, this application is not going to conclude tonight. Certainly, the objections that I've heard from both counsel were procedural, so to speak, but certainly you will have the opportunity to present your own defense, if you will, or your own case in opposition to this, to the application. If you decide to retain experts, certainly we will deal with that at the next hearing. At this point, I think, Madam Chair, let's continue with this testimony of Mr. Williams, and we'll see how far we get. It's 9:36 now. Madam Chair, do you have any idea when you want to conclude this hearing this evening?
I don't know what dates are available. I'd have to ask Mr. Deutsch.
Okay. So why don't we do this? Mr. Williams, we'll continue with Mr. Williams' testimony. We see what he is after he's done with his testimony based on direct examination, and then we'll go from there.
I was just going to ask you, can we talk for 5 minutes? Can we take another 3-minute break? I just need to speak with you.
Sure.
Mr. Viva. Okay, so we're going to take a 3-minute break.
Okay, I'll
Off the
Off the record.
Off the record. Okay. Madam Secretary, we're going to go back. Well, first of all, we're going to go back on the record. And I know you have to take roll call. So can you do that? Thank you.
Ready?
Yep,
On
ready.
the record.
Commissioner Figueroa?
Present.
Commissioner Liranzo?
Present.
Commissioner Roman?
Present.
Commissioner Amar?
Present.
Madam Vice Chair Santana?
Present.
And Madam Chair Northrup?
Present.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to adjourn the meeting at this point. counsel for the objector is certainly based on Mr. Dockery's representation. The two of you will confer as to whether or not you are going to retain an expert in any area that was testified to tonight. Obviously, we would ask for the courtesy of whatever reports that would be submitted, that they be submitted at least 10 days prior to the next hearing date, which we are going to decide tonight as well. Mr. Williams, Mr. Guzman, Mr. Williams, it just makes sense at this point not to finish Mr. Williams' testimony, because given the extent of his testimony and the subject matter, a lot of it may be lost between now and the time that we get to the next hearing. So it may be best to just pick up where we are at the next meeting. Mr. Deutsch, can you hear me? Mr. Deutsch?
Yes, Mr. Aquaviva.
Okay. So, Mr. Guzman, I know your client has paid for a special meeting tonight. I don't know if we need another special meeting per se. I'm not sure I'm going to get the availability of our regular meetings from Mr. Deutsch in a second, but I don't think we necessarily need another special meeting. We have one witness, and then whatever witnesses the objectors counsel are going to put on, if any. I think we can get through that in a night, but Mr. Deutsch, I'll leave it to you. We can't force the applicant to pay for another special meeting. So unless the applicant requests that and wants to pay for another special meeting, what's the earliest that we can get them on the agenda for our regular meeting?
Ms. Perez, what date did we come up with?
November 2nd.
November 2nd.
Mr. Guzman?
Is Mr. Williams available November 2nd? Mr. Williams, can you hear me?
Mr. Williams, are you there?
Yes, Madam Chair. Sorry, I was trying to get the exhibit off the screen. Checking my schedule now. Anyone that knows me knows that my team does not allow me to have anything to do with scheduling, because I will always overbook. But I will say this publicly: November 2nd, which is a Wednesday, seems to be available, so I will reserve it now.
Somebody can.
Yeah, I hear more
I got it.
sounds in
I
the
got it.
background.
I got it.
Sorry.
I got it.
Mr. Baglione, I think you wanted to say something. You want to be recognized?
I raised my hand. Based on tonight's date of September 19th and our requirement to give you a report within 10 days.
No, within 10 days from tonight.
No, 10 days, but if you.
Prior to the next hearing.
That's a month away, because if you schedule for November 2nd, I have to provide a report by October 23rd. I have to retain an expert, have it written and prepared. That's impossible. And number two, I have a conflict. The Borough of Woodland Park has its regular meetings, as your honors do, on Wednesday evenings. So that's our meeting. We're on the 1st and the 3rd of every month. That's
Madam Chairman?
Understood, Mr. Baglione, that's when our regular meetings are as well.
I know. So we can't I understand that. So for that, we would have to, the mayor would speak. The mayor has spoken before your honors in the past. Our members, there would be a lot of juxtaposing, but most importantly is there's no way to get any expert retained, prepped, read this, obtain the transcript, and then provide that report 10 days in advance. I can live with the procedural requirements. I just need more time.
I certainly understand that point, but to your point about our Wednesday evening meetings, those are our regular meetings.
I understand.
And we can't force the applicant to pay for a special meeting, so it is going to be a first or a third Wednesday of the month. So
if I have more than a month, I can prepare to have someone cover.
The next available meeting is December 7th.
I don't agree to anything beyond November 2nd. These attorneys have had information of this meeting and this application for over a year, yet they haven't responded nor come and approached me about any sort of talking point regarding this application. Yet we sit here on September 9th, filled with all sorts of misguided accusations and requests for more time so I can get an expert. Now, September 19th, it's insulting. It's insulting to the applicant. It's insulting to the commissioners. It's insulting to everyone who's here to object. This is absolutely ridiculous, and they should be embarrassed to even make such a request.
I would say this, Mr. Acquaviva, there is a clear ethical violation here. Mr. Guzman had an obligation to serve us with those reports. It wasn't the board's responsibility. It's the applicant's responsibility.
The applicant never responded to my communication.
Violation.
The applicant never responded to my communication.
It is absolutely outrageous. I've never been sandbagged by this, especially.
This is absolutely ridiculous and out of line.
And I am going to make sure that this is.
Mr. Baglione, stop it right now. I am going to shut this down in 1 second. Seriously. We can't all be talking, and I said this a million times tonight, because you have the court stenographer has to report what we're talking about. So please, one person at a time.
That next person's going to be me, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
First of all, Mr. Baglione, I find it egregious that you would accuse another attorney of unethical conduct based on this. However,
serve the report.
The
facts are the facts.
And you're entitled to your opinion. Okay, but that from looking up here, I don't see anything unethical about this. That's number one. Number two, Mr. Guzman, I understand where you're coming from, but the fact remains that for some reason, reports that were testified to tonight were not provided to the objectors. I don't know why. I don't know whose fault it is. I don't know if it's anybody's fault. And quite frankly, it doesn't really matter, because I'm advising this board to adjourn the application tonight. Now, we can't accommodate everybody's schedules because of their other obligations. It's physically impossible. Mr. Baglione, I understand your concern about hiring an expert, retaining an expert, speaking with the expert, preparing with the expert. Unfortunately, I've dealt with it many times in my career, and I do think that November 2nd is probably a bit close. For whatever reason, Madam Secretary, we cannot accommodate on November 16th, correct?
November 16th is being canceled.
Then the next available meeting is December 7th?
Correct.
That'll be it. It's going to be on for December 7th.
Excuse me.
Yes, Mr. Deutsch.
Ms. Perez. Did we,
We changed, oh, wait a second, we did change it to November 30th, I believe it was.
I believe we did.
I'm sorry, hold on 1 second. I didn't write it down in my calendar.
Just make sure, because another concern is, I know the League of Municipalities.
It's November 16th, that's why it's being canceled.
Okay.
Hold on 1 second, we did request it to be changed to November 30th. I just didn't add it to my calendar, and it's in my email to the municipal clerk. Hold on 1 second, I believe they confirmed it. Yes, November 30th.
Okay, so, Mr. Deutsch, we're available to put this on for our regular meeting of November 30th. Madam Secretary, Mr. Deutsch, yes?
Yes.
Okay, so, Madam Chair, I'm advising this board that the application be carried to November 30th. I'm putting on the record tonight that there will be no further notice, either a certified mail publication, for any objectors individually, personally, or through counsel who are logged in tonight. November 30th at 6:30 p.m. will be the continuation of this application. You will not be getting any further notice. What you're hearing me say right now is your notice. So no one will be able to object in any size, shape, or form because they did not get any other notice for November 30th. Madam Chair, I'm sorry, Mr. Guzman, if there are any reports that you happen to see that were not submitted, and even if you're not sure, submit them again and submit them to Mr. Baglione and submit them to Mr. Dockery. Council, Mr. Baglione, Mr. Dockery, given that this application is now being continued to November 30th, you have until November 20th to provide everyone, including this board and Mr. Guzman, with whatever expert reports you intend to rely on, and be prepared to proceed that evening, because quite frankly, Mr. Guzman has one more witness for all intents and purposes, and the stage will be yours if you care to take it.
Right, we will begin with
Understood,
Mr.
everybody?
Williams.
Okay, Mr. Aguaviva, I just need a motion to adjourn.
Wait, we will begin with Mr.
Wait 1
Williams.
second, Madam Chair? Yep.
We will begin with Mr. Williams on the 30th.
Correct.
Is that correct? Okay, we're going to start with Mr. Williams, and then we'll move from there. Okay, so yes, I'd like to close the public portion.
No, we're adjourning.
Okay, we're adjourning completely. Okay. So Who would like to make a motion to motion to adjourn?
Adjourn, I make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
That's Commissioner Lorenzo. Do I have a second?
Second, this is Commissioner Santana.
Yep,
Thank you.
Commissioner Vice Chair Santana, second. Okay, roll call.
Commissioner Figueroa,
Yes.
Commissioner Liranzo,
Yes.
Commissioner Roman,
Yes.
Commissioner Amar,
Yes.
Madam Vice Chair Santana,
Yes.
and Madam Chair Northrop.
Yes.
Thank you.
And I just would like to say one last thing. There were only six, I know we're off the record now, but I want to talk to
No, we're still on the record.
We're still on the record, okay. Just good, because we had six commissioners this evening. Commissioners, you must come back to this meeting on the 30th. So we need the six commissioners that were here this evening. And the others, if they can attend, that's great. But the bottom line is we need those six.
Madam Chair, hold on one second.
Uh-huh.
I was going to say this before you said that. Madam Secretary, if there are other commissioners that will be present in that meeting, please, if there's any way, we need to know right away. They need
Yes.
to, they copy the
Get the
transcript. and they need to
Transcripts
sign
and
a
certify that
certification.
they read them, correct.
That's
Okay.
right.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so that should do it then. All right, thank you, everyone. You have a good evening.
Thank you.
I need a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Good night.
Have a good night.
Motion.
All
to
in
adjourn.
favor?
Okay, aye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Good night. We're off
Good
the
night. Good night.